Hello, this is your host, Adam Graham, from Pretty Much the Present. And in this video, we'll be bringing you a compilation of old-time radio detective podcasts from 2010. The podcasts are appearing, for the most part, unedited, except for some extraneous or repetitive elements that are being removed because this is a compilation. As I said, these are old, so any websites or offers mentioned may not be valid at the time you're listening unless you find them on our website currently. Now, with that said, here is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio from Boise, Idaho. This is your host, Adam Graham. Got a comment? Email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And you can become a fan of the show on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. Well, I'm pleased to announce this is our 191st daily episode. Our 200th episode is coming up, and our 200th episode special, which will be on July 31st, will be Suspense's presentation of The Candy Tooth Caper, starring Howard Duff as Sam Spade in a sequel to The Maltese Falcon you're sure to enjoy. Now, before we do get into today's episode of Box 13, I want to let you know about our sponsors. It can be a challenge to grow your business. It seems there are a never-ending list of activities that eat into limited time. That's why I'm so glad to bring GoToMeeting on as a sponsor, because GoToMeeting allows you to do more with the time you have. Whether it saves you a plane trip to Japan or just a trip across town, GoToMeeting saves you time on travel. It can also give you greater flexibility in your scheduling. With GoToMeeting, you can have a meeting with clients in Los Angeles and then immediately afterwards be able to connect with vendors in San Diego through the convenience of GoToMeeting conferencing. Listeners to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio can try GoToMeeting free for 45 days. For this special offer, visit GoToMeeting.com/podcast. That's GoToMeeting.com/podcast to start your free 45-day trial. Now let's get into today's episode of Box 13, Daytime Nightmare.
Box 13, with the star of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
Box 13, care of the Star Times. I should like very much to see you and offer a proposition which could be of mutual profit to us. Of course, there is some danger involved. But then, your advertisement asks for adventure. So if you are interested, perhaps we could have lunch tomorrow afternoon. Say at 1 o'clock.
Say at 1 o'clock, the Golden Arrow. Ask for Mr. Waring's table. There's some danger involved, he said. Yes, that's what the man said. And, brother, that's exactly what he meant. And now, back to Box 13 and Dan Holliday's newest adventure, Daytime Nightmare.
Well, at least this letter invites you to lunch, Mr. Holliday.
Uh-huh. Lunch, and then what?
Danger, it says. That sounds exciting.
It always does. You know, Susie, someday I'm going to walk into one of these things and not walk out.
Then follow up one of these other letters. There's one that asks for a babysitter. The woman says her children are an adventure.
Oh, no, thanks. I'll take Mr. Waring's letter and his proposition.
Then you'd better hurry. It's almost 12:30 now.
Oh, don't push, Susie. Don't push.
What time will you be back?
Probably this evening. But don't wait for me. Just lock up the office and take off. So long, Susie. The ultra dining and luncheon spots where you can get a swell dollar lunch for $5. I asked for Mr. Waring's table, and the waiter showed me to a nice secluded corner. A small orchestra was playing. A couple were dancing. And Mr. Waring was just sitting there. I took a good look at him before I sat down. He was big and handsome, maybe about 50, and the diamond he flashed on the little finger of his right hand was spelled with 1,500 capital dollars. He looked up, saw me standing there.
How do you do? You're Box 13?
Yes, that's right. You're Mr. Waring.
And you're right. Please, sit down. I've ordered lunch. I hope you approve.
Oh, thanks. I'm sure I will.
You're younger than I expected.
Oh, disappointed?
No, please. Tell me, is Box 13 the way you make your living?
Well, not quite.
Yeah, I read your advertisement several times. Adventure wanted, go any place, do anything, write Box 13.
Is that said with disapproval?
No, not at all, Mr.
Dan Holliday.
Oh, no, not disapproval, Dan, just regret. Regret that I hadn't the nerve to do such a thing when I was your age.
Well, sometimes the regrets are mine.
Huh? Oh, I see. You mean once in a while you get something that's hard to handle.
That's it.
But you've always come out on top.
Well, I've had a lot of luck.
Is there any of it left?
Do I need some?
If you do what I ask, you will.
All right. What's on your mind, Mr. Waring?
First, we'll have lunch. Then we'll talk. Will that be all right with you?
If you say so, yes.
Good. Charles, you may bring our lunch now. Now, let's enjoy ourselves. There's lots of time to get serious after lunch.
Well, Waring was a very good conversationalist. I learned he was an attorney for one of the biggest estates in the country. He kept leading the conversation around to that every time we got on something else. Then, when lunch was over...
Enjoy it, Dan?
Very much.
Cigar?
Oh, no, thank you.
Now, if you'll come with me.
Come with you? But I thought we were going to talk.
Oh, I'd rather have more privacy. You'll understand why when I tell you what I have in mind.
Oh, it's that important, huh?
Would you say $10 million was important?
It commands attention, yes.
Then please come with me.
We left the Golden Arrow. The doorman saluted Waring and signaled the big limousine that sneaked up along the curb and purred to a stop.
Please, get in, Dan.
Pardon me. Where are we going?
Oh, for a ride through the park.
Wait a minute. I want to know what this is all about before I go in play.
You're not very trusting, are you, Dan?
It's not that.
Something wrong, Dan?
I
Get in the car, Dan. A little air will make you feel better.
But
Go on, get in. All right, Bert. You know where to go.
I'd been drugged before, so I knew what it felt like. It felt exactly like this. I came crawling out of the long, dark tunnel with a buzzing in my ears, my mouth dry as cotton. I was lying down, and I reached out my arms. I was on a cot. A nice white cot in a nice white room. I sat on the edge of the bed, looked around. There was a window, but there were bars over it. I went to the door. Hey, open up. Open this door. Open this door, somebody. Come on, open the door.
Get away from the door. Get away from it.
Open it up, whoever you are.
Move back away from it, and I will. Go on.
I moved back and away. There was a pause, and then...
Well, Mr. Stokes, you've awakened at last.
Stokes? What are you talking about? Come on, get me out of this gag, or I'll break my way out.
Samuel, Hugo. Sir? Now, Mr. Stokes, you don't want Samuel and Hugo to take care of you, do you?
What is this?
Sit down, Mr. Stokes. Please. Sit down.
I won't sit down. Where's Waring?
He'll be here in a moment. If you want to see Mr. Waring, I'm sure that can be arranged.
Well, that's better. And call off those mastiffs in white coats.
Wait outside, Samuel, Hugo, and close the door. Go ahead. I'll be all right. Stay where you are, Mr. Stokes.
Look, if this is a gag, let's run it off the boards and put a tag to it.
Gag? Why, Mr. Stokes, you sound almost rational.
Rational? What are you talking about?
Just that. I've no doubt that in a year, perhaps a little more, we can discharge you.
You mean this is no gag?
No, it's not a gag. You're Edward Stokes. Remember that. You're Edward Stokes.
Where's Waring?
He'll be here to see you with your wife.
My wife?
Of course. I wonder if you remember her.
I don't know what you're trying to get away with, but if I have to play rough, I can play it.
Samuel! Hugo! I think Mr. Stokes needs to be quieted. Take care of it, Samuel.
Get them away from me.
When you've decided to be more calm, Mr. Stokes, we can have a talk in my office. Until then, I shall take precautions against your homicidal tendencies.
Well, it was no gag. Samuel and Hugo were too big for games, and they played rough. Samuel left, and Hugo sat beside the bed to watch me. I knew now where I was. In a sanitarium. But why? Now, why was I called Edward Stokes? I had to find out, so I turned to Hugo.
What?
Oh, Hugo, these straps are hurting me.
No thanks, Mr. Stokes. I can't loosen them for you.
Look, get my clothes, take out my wallet, take the money that's in it, and just let me get to a telephone.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stokes. You know that's against the rules.
Who was the man who spoke to me before?
That's Mr. Cordell.
Mister? Not a doctor?
Well, yes and no. This here's a kind of a rest home.
Does everyone get as much rest as I do?
Hey, you're all right, Mr. Stokes. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm dying. Where are my clothes?
No. We'll get them for you later.
Look, I'm not Edward Stokes. I'm Dan Holliday, get it? My name's Dan Holliday. I'm a writer.
Well, that's swell. I'll bring you a pencil and paper later.
Hugo, go to a phone. Call the number I'll give you and ask for Susie.
Has she got a sister for me?
Now listen, you big lummox. This is a frame-up. I'm not Edward Stokes. I don't know who he is. I never even heard of him. I'm Dan Holliday, a writer.
Yeah, okay, I believe you. Once I took care of a man who was Shakespeare. I believed him. I also took care of Michelangelo, Dante, Spinoza. Why,
Look, I want to see Cordell.
What for?
I want to talk to him.
What about?
Does that make any difference?
Yeah, because if it's not important, he'll get mad at me.
All right. Tell him I remember now that I'm Edward Stokes. It all comes back to me. Now, will you go to him?
Yeah, okay, but please, Mr. Stokes, don't try what you did before. I hate to get rough.
All right, I promise.
It's a good boy. And keep on being a good boy, and you'll be allowed visitors this afternoon.
I'll be very happy to see them. Very happy.
All right, Mr. Stokes, I brought you to see Mr. Cordell like you asked. Now, promise you'll take it easy?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Hugo.
It's nothing. Here he is, Mr. Cordell.
Good. Close the door and wait outside, Hugo.
You sure you'll be all right, Mr. Cordell?
I think Mr. Stokes has learned his lesson.
Sure. Please be a good boy now.
Yeah, I will, Hugo.
So, you've become reconciled, Mr. Stokes.
I know I can talk myself blue in the face to Hugo or anyone else around here and not get anywhere. But I want you to tell me what this is all about.
I'll be glad to. You're Edward Stokes. You're here for a rest. You were formerly at the Millhaven Sanitarium, but your wife thought this would be a better place. Don't you remember?
Remember? Oh, of course I do. You've made it all so clear.
Good. Oh, by the way, you're looking so much better than when I saw you last, Mr. Stokes. Would you like to see how much better?
What do you mean?
There's a mirror on the door of that closet to your right. Open it and see how you've improved.
I looked in the mirror. I didn't see Dan Holliday. I saw a stranger. Cordell's voice came to me from 1,000,000 miles away.
There's some gray in your hair, of course, but that's to be expected. As a whole, it's still a nice, deep, rich black.
My hair's been dyed.
Has it? I'll bet you think it was once blonde. I imagine you think your name was once Dan Holliday. Take a good look at yourself, Mr. Stokes. Get acquainted with your new personality. You'll be with it for quite a while.
Cordell smiled at me. Then I knew for certain this was no joke. I was Edward Stokes. My hair dyed, clever touches of makeup here and there. Even Susie wouldn't have known me.
Do you know why you've become Edward Stokes?
Why, Mr. Cordell?
Because Mr. Edward Stokes is dead.
And now back to Daytime Nightmare, another Box 13 adventure with Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday.
Well, there was a twist. I was a dead man, yet I was alive and being kept alive. But for what? Later in my room, I thought of making a break for it. But there was always Samuel and Hugo. Then later, I was taken again to Cordell's office. This time, Hugo went in with me. Cordell wasn't alone. With him were Waring and a woman. The woman looked at me as I entered.
Edward, darling.
Would you mind just calling me Dan?
Please, Edward. You remember me?
Of course you remember your wife, don't you, Edward?
Oh, hello, Waring. I must buy you lunch sometime.
Lunch? Oh, of course.
I told your wife and Mr. Waring that you were so much better, Mr. Stokes. But now you've disappointed me.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Cordell.
Hugo, please wait outside. I'll call you if I need you.
Sure, Mr. Cordell.
He does look like Edward.
Must you say it so loud, Philip?
Oh, sorry.
How long does this go on?
Not much longer. Of course, it all depends on you.
Yes, how?
We'll leave that until later. Clarice.
What?
You've got to sign those transfer papers.
They're all right?
Of course. Oh, Edward, it might be interesting for you to watch yourself being committed.
I'm warning all of you. I'm going to get out of here. And when I do,
And when you do, what?
Where's the real Edward Stokes?
How does he know about Edward?
Cordell, did you open your mouth?
What's the difference? He can babble his head off and no one will pay any attention.
Suppose something goes wrong.
How can it? It's all too perfect.
Of course it is. Sign the papers, Clarice. Get it over with. Good. Now let's go.
Nothing can go wrong.
Not unless you double-cross me.
You've got your money, and you're in as deeply as anyone. You better see that everything goes all right.
It will.
Fine. Now, goodbye, Edward, and good luck. Come along.
Well, Mr. Stokes, you're now officially in my care.
That should make everything just ducky.
Oh, it will.
If it's not asking too much, what happens now?
My dear Mr. Stokes, if you knew, you wouldn't like it.
What's to prevent me from reaching across this desk and knocking your head off, just for the fun of it?
This gun will prevent it.
You wouldn't dare use it.
No, not directly. But suppose you did try something. Suppose we struggled and the gun went off accidentally.
Suppose it did?
And killed you. Who would be your witness? Not you. You'd be dead. Not Hugo, because he saw you attack me this morning.
Cordell leaned back in his chair and grinned. Then he laid the gun on the desk. It was so close to me. So close. He knew what I was thinking because his grin widened. But I had to take the chance. I jumped. Stay right there, Cordell.
All right. Now that you've got the gun, what will you do?
Hand me that phone.
Certainly. Here you are.
Keep your hands on top of the desk.
With pleasure. Whom are you going to call?
The police.
All right. Go ahead. Hugo! Hugo! What's the matter? Mr. Stokes. Be careful, Hugo. He's raving.
Hugo, you've got to believe me. I'm not Edward Stokes. I'm Dan Holliday. Give me 2 minutes to put through a phone call.
No, Mr. Stokes. You don't want to do anything with that gun. Better give it to me like a good boy.
Hugo, please. Please stay back.
Careful, Hugo. He may shoot.
Stay back, Mr. Cordell. I can handle him.
Hugo, listen to me. Listen to me. Give me 2 minutes on that phone. Just 1 minute.
Mr. Stokes, give me that gun. Come on, give it to me.
Wait, Hugo. Wait, I don't want to shoot. But I'll have to do it if you come any closer.
Better not.
Hugo, I'm in a spot. The real Edward Stokes is dead, Hugo. He's been killed by his wife and his attorney. Listen to me. Stand still and listen to me.
Easy. Easy, Mr. Stokes, easy.
The real Stokes has been killed. He was taken from the first sanitarium and killed. I was brought here, Hugo. Brought here to impersonate Stokes. Cordell wants me to shoot you, Hugo, so I can be killed legally.
Sure,
Stokes!
Sure.
Hugo!
I know all that, Mr. Stokes, but if you'll just...
Hugo.
I'm afraid you killed him, Stokes.
Cordell, you shot the poor devil.
Of course I did, Mr. Stokes.
You shot him with another gun you just took out of that drawer.
That's perfectly true, Mr. Stokes.
Ballistics can prove which gun killed Hugo.
That's true, too, Mr. Stokes. But who would think of ballistics in connection with a maniac?
Cordell stood there, a smoking gun in his hand. Oh, it was a beautiful frame. In a second, the rest of the people in the place would crowd into that office. What chance would I have? None. I could talk myself into a lather. Cordell put the gun back onto his desk.
Well, Mr. Stokes, what now?
I can prove I didn't shoot this gun.
Think you'll get the chance?
I'll be back. Get out of the way.
Be careful, all of you. Don't chase after him. He's got a gun. He killed Hugo. Stay back. Let him go. Send out a general alarm.
I ran out into the night, out into the rest of my nightmare. I cleared the grounds of the rest home and took to the woods. There was only one thing in my favor, the darkness. I stayed in the woods, but I had to get to a phone. I don't know how long I walked. Maybe an hour, maybe 2. Then I saw a house. There were lights in it. I hesitated, but I had to get to that phone.
That you, Wally?
Yeah, it's me.
Just a minute.
Don't scream, please. Get back.
Please don't.
Look, I'm not going to hurt you. I want to get to a phone. Have you got one?
No, there's no phone here.
Where's the nearest one?
The filling station down the road.
Have you got any men's clothes here?
In the closet.
Would you mind getting them out?
Go away, please. I won't tell anybody you've been here, but don't hurt me, please.
You know who I am?
The radio, they said.
How long ago?
Oh, half an hour, maybe.
Get those clothes for me, please. Get them.
All right. They won't fit you. They're too small.
I don't care about that. Throw them on the table there. Just trousers and coat.
All right.
I pulled the trousers and coat on over the pajamas I was wearing. The woman watched me, and she watched the door. She was expecting someone. Wally, probably her husband. Then...
Please go now.
How far is that filling station?
Oh, about 2 miles.
There's no phone closer than that?
No.
All right, you stay in here. You're not going to get hurt. Just stay in here until you're sure I'm far enough away. You get that?
Yes, I won't move.
Good. I'll return the clothes later. She screamed. I could her screams fading into the night as I ran. I had 2 miles to go, 2 miles through the brush and woods. I couldn't risk getting to the road. Then I heard something. I ran until my legs were torn by the brush. I ran until my breath choked in my throat. Then I saw the station, but I couldn't get to it. I crept closer and lay down in a mud-filled ditch. I knew then what a fox must feel like with the hounds tearing at his heels. I listened. I heard Cordell's voice.
To begin with, he's dark-haired, wearing pajamas. But he may have picked up some clothes somewhere.
I haven't seen anybody.
Better be careful of him, Clade. He's got a gun. Already killed a man back at the home. Don't take no chances. Shoot to kill.
I will, Sheriff. Thanks for warning me.
Okay, Clade. Oh, got a gun?
Sure, always keep one in the station.
Good. Keep your radio turned on, too. We're running bulletins on the air. That way you can tell if he's headed this way.
Sure. See you later, Sheriff.
Remember, he's dangerous.
A homicidal maniac. Take no chances.
Okay, Mr. Cordell, thanks. So long.
So long, Clade.
I watched the attendant, Clade, go back into the filling station. I watched him take a gun from a drawer and shove it into his pocket. I crept across the road. My stomach hurt from pressing it close against the concrete. Clade came out of the station, looked up and down the road. Then he turned off the lights and locked the door. Don't take another step. Don't look around. Don't reach for that gun in your pocket.
What are you going to do?
Nothing. You won't get hurt. I want to use the phone in the station.
It's out of order.
You're lying.
I'm not lying. Why don't you try it?
Where are the keys to the door?
In my pocket.
Keep your hands out of that pocket.
You want the keys, don't you?
Keep your back turned. I know that gun is in your coat pocket. The keys there, too?
No, in my trousers.
Reach in. Get them out. But be careful. Now, unlock the station door and go in ahead of me. Never mind the lights.
Look, why don't you give me your gun? You haven't got a chance, fella. The roads are crawling with prowl cars. They were here just a minute ago.
Yes, I know it. I saw them. Now reach in that coat pocket. Back to me. Reach in and take out that gun. All right. Hold it by 2 fingers and drop it on the floor. Go on. Now, stand over there while I use the phone.
It's out of order, I told you.
Stay where you are. Hello? Hello?
I told you.
Where's another phone?
The nearest one's about 5 miles down the road.
You're lying.
Like I was about this phone? Look, please, why don't you give up? Give me that gun, we'll go into town. Please. They'll shoot you down on sight if you leave here alone.
I've got to take that chance.
No, you don't. I want to give you a break, fella. I want to give you a break because...
Because?
Once I saw a dog shot. A dog they all said was mad. It wasn't mad. All it wanted was water. But they shot it without giving it a chance. Please, give me your gun.
Look, if I tell you a story, you won't believe it. I know you won't.
Maybe I will. Go ahead.
I'm not Edward Stokes. I'm not the man they're hunting for. He's dead. Killed by his wife and his attorney.
What?
I think because they want his estate. If I'm killed as Stokes, they'll identify me as him.
Please, give me the gun.
You don't believe me, do you?
I believe only that if you leave here and get out on that road, you'll be shot down. You're hurt.
Never mind. Get me to a phone.
I can't.
All right, here. Take the gun. Take it.
That's the way, fella.
Now you've got the gun. I want you to do one thing. Get me to a phone. Let me call the police. Let me identify myself, will you?
Come on. I've got a car.
Clayt got me to a phone. I called Lieutenant Kling and told him the story. And less than an hour later, the sheriff, his men, Clayt, and I walked into Cordell's office.
Ah, you've got him. Good work, Sheriff.
Yeah, we got him.
I'm surprised you took him alive.
Yeah, so are we. Mind stepping over here a minute, Mr. Cordell?
What for?
Get over.
What is this?
You'll find the gun that killed Hugo in that drawer, Sheriff.
What? What, this man's mad, Sheriff.
I heard different from the city.
Look out!
Hey, take it easy, Cordell.
Get that gun, Sheriff.
There.
That's the gun that killed Hugo, not the one I gave Clayt. You were right, Mr. Cordell. No one would have thought of ballistics to see which gun had killed Hugo. Now I think I need a bath. And a nice, long rest.
Cordell, Waring, and Mrs. Stokes were arrested on suspicion of murder. Police are searching for the body of Edward Stokes. Gee, Mr. Holliday.
Well, it wasn't nice, Susie. But let's forget it.
Sure, I know what you mean. Oh, say, I have to remind you.
Huh? Of what?
You've got a luncheon appointment today at...
Luncheon? Oh, no, Susie.
Next week, same time, through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures, Alan Ladd stars as Dan Holliday in Box 13. Box 13 is directed by Richard Sandville, with this week's original story by Russell Hughes. Original music is composed and conducted by Rudy Schrager. Part of Susie is played by Sylvia Picker, and production is supervised by Vern Karstensen. Box 13 is a Mayfair production from Hollywood. Watch for Alan Ladd in his latest Paramount picture.
Welcome back. This is one of these episodes that really does make Box 13 different from other detective shows. It's kind of hard to get your detectives into this type of situation. But the Box 13 ad, in particular, kind of invites it. I did like the twist. I thought this was some good writing and an unexpected way to resolve it, in terms of Dan having just to find someone who would give him half a chance. All right, well, we have some listener comments. A well-done and enjoyable podcast. Controversial only in that Adam's commentary seems to place listeners firmly in either the love it or hate it camp. I appreciate the commentary and insight, and have gradually come to accept his voice, reminiscent of a prepubescent Jimmy Stewart-esque voice, as exactly what it is, real. Keep it up. Well, thanks. Jimmy Stewart, like when he was introducing that bill in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Interesting comparison. Thanks for the kind comment, though. The shows themselves are fantastically written and great for listening to just before sleep, and Adam's commentary is always interesting. And then we have this one. Box 13 is a great show. This is one show where the character isn't too hard, but not a pushover either. And I like the idea of Mr. Holliday going out to find adventure, not for money or fame, but researching his new books. Not really a detective, but not a policeman either, just a straight and narrow man that finds adventure wherever he goes. It's a wonder why it didn't last longer. I don't think they gave it a chance. The reason it didn't last longer, Alan Ladd actually is the producer of the show. And I think the show really did serve to forward Ladd as a motion picture star. And also to provide some additional money by being able to re-syndicate the show. And the show at 52 weeks is a perfect length for syndication because the radio stations bought up the shows in 13, 26, and 52 episode chunks. So a 52 episode chunk could be used either 13 episodes here or 26 episodes, or buying all 52 episodes to play on the show. In terms of why it didn't last longer, I think Mr. Ladd's career really caught on fire in the 40s and 50s. And the film credits were quite a bit in terms of the financial incentive there. Plus, once you started into the 1950s, there was less money in radio. 1951 was the first year that television outperformed radio financially. And so the syndication process after that time just didn't make sense. A good question. Thanks so much for that. That's from Powers over on Facebook. Well, and you can become a fan on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. And I do want to welcome Philip as a new premium subscriber. Anybody leaves a tip of $7 or more can get a year of access to our premium site. And Nora renewed. I mispronounced her name previously. I want to be sure I say it right, because we're going to be doing Nora Charles on the Thin Man, so we've got to be able to say that right. I'll let you know about when the Thin Man's coming up in just a few weeks now. Before we do get started, I want to let you know about our sponsors. The GoToMeeting conferencing service that's offered by our sponsors is designed for bottom-line folks who want to make the most of their times, don't want to compromise the security of their business, and want an affordable service. So the bottom line on GoToMeeting, is it safe? Yes, it has the high standard of security right down to the user interface. Is it affordable? Yes, you get unlimited meetings for $49 a month, and that includes free voice, IP, and phone conferencing. Will it save you time? Judge for yourself. Listeners to this program can get a 45-day risk-free trial of GoToMeeting. For this special offer, visit gotomeeting.com/podcast. That's gotomeeting.com/podcast. Now we'll get into today's episode of Jeff Regan, which is called either The Gambler and His Lady or The Gambler and His Ladies, and we'll talk about that when we get back.
My name's Regan. I get 10 a day in expenses from a detective bureau run by a guy named Anthony J. Lyon. They call me the Lion's Eye.
With Jack Webb as Jeff Regan, the Lion's Eye, stand by for hard-boiled action and mystery and thrilling adventure in tonight's story of The Gambler and His Lady.
find it in Hollywood, on Taft Avenue. 4-story apartment building, the color of a rainy afternoon. They call it the Havenwood. It sags in the middle like a tired Frankfurter. That's where I live. Apartment 3K. 2 rooms with a pull-down bed and a pair of windows that stick when it's hot. Oh, the view isn't much. 6 strands of telephone wire and the head of a shaved-off palm tree. Beyond is the city, L.A., spread out on the map like a raw egg with a broken yolk. Oh, the town's all right, I guess, if you can afford the sedatives. The Lyon likes it. He set himself up as a receiving clerk for trouble, and I work for him. It was about 11:15 Tuesday night when my phone began making itself felt. Turned out to be the Lyon breathing hard. It figured he was running his fingers over a greenback.
Regan, want to hear the sound of a brand new $50 bill?
Send me a record.
What's the matter? You sound like you're flat on your back.
How do you sleep?
Who's sleeping? I'm working, and that's what you're going to be doing.
Try me tomorrow.
Throw on some clothes. You're going down to Venice Boulevard to see a lady. She's got daughter trouble.
Well, marry her off.
She didn't pay us $50 for that. The problem goes deeper.
How much?
She'll tell you.
I want it from you.
I don't know it all for sure.
Don't you ever check into things?
I do the general work. You get the details.
Yeah, you drag a wet rag over the 50, and if the ink stays on, we got a client.
That's insulting.
How would you know?
Regan, you don't want to keep a lady waiting. Now get a move on.
Give me the name.
Mrs. Eleanor Bascom, Pierpont Hotel.
Yeah?
And phone me after you talk to her.
What for?
I want to be sure it's legit.
Do you care?
Better make that call to me tomorrow after 10. I'm sort of going to be tied up till then.
Doing what?
Sleeping.
Well, I put on some clothes, picked up my car, and moved out to Venice Boulevard. The good humor men were all gone, and I had the street to myself. 20 minutes later, I came to a stop beside a garbage can near San Pedro. Behind it stood the Pierpont Hotel, a 2-deck pile of wood left over from the sinking of the Spanish Armada. There was a black and dirty white sign outside, said rooms 50 cents, weekly and monthly rates. The names Eleanor and Georgia Bascom showed in the mailbox and gave a room 210. I climbed a flight of stairs and walked down a hall that looked like a passageway in a pyramid. It was dark, and it took my cigarette lighter to turn up the numbers. 210 finally showed, and I rapped on the door. A bush of black and gray hair pulled it open. It was wearing a red kimono and an impatient look, like a tax collector in January. She was pushing 50 and looked tired.
Yes?
I'm Regan, international detective.
Oh, yes, the Lion's Eye. I've been waiting for you. Come in. I'm Mrs. Bascom.
Eleanor or Georgia?
Georgia's my daughter.
Oh.
I want to apologize for getting you out here this time of night, Mr. Regan, but it's urgent.
The Lion said that the girl's the problem. Huh?
Yes.
How old is she?
22.
Who's the man?
How'd you know there was a man?
Well, what other kind of trouble would she go after?
She's a good girl, Mr. Regan. She always has been.
Until now. Huh?
That's what I want to know.
Well, she's old enough to call her plays.
That's not the advice I'm paying for.
Where'd you get the 50?
It took a lot of saving.
All right, give me his name.
Louis Desmond.
Gambler, card sharp, bookie, all-around con man.
He's got a card room out toward Gardena someplace, the 5 Aces Club.
What does your daughter see in him?
Oh, it's this place. The way we have to live. She's tired of having nothing. I've tried, but she's looking for a change.
And taking a wrong turn.
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, other girls have it real tough. They go to work.
Well, we had a little trouble in the family once. It shows up if someone starts looking.
When can I talk to Georgia?
Well, you'll have to work that out yourself, Mr. Regan.
What does that mean?
She put some clothes in a suitcase and left earlier this evening. That's why I had to call you so suddenly.
Mm-hmm. Where'd she go?
Louis is a real bum, Mr. Regan.
You talk like you know him.
We've met. I want to know just what's going on. If Louis is forcing her into anything crooked.
She force easy?
A fur coat makes a young girl do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a picture of her. You may need it.
Mm-hmm.
Not very good, but the only one I've got.
I'll make it work.
That's about all, Mr. Regan. Get in touch with me as soon as you get something.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Regan.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm the kind of person who sometimes gets hysterical over things, but I'm also the kind who demands results.
You sound like a radio commercial. It was after midnight when I followed the fog out Vermont toward Gardena. The yellow lights were pressing, but they were doing about as much good as a pint of bourbon at a Shriners convention. I wandered around the flatland for a while before the Five Aces Club turned up by a bend in the road. It looked like a blue wart with a neon sign. There was a front door and a back one, and a couple of pairs of shoulders standing at each. A little guy in a pinstriped gray was figuring the size of the wallets going in. Louis Desmond's office showed at the top of the stairway, and I moved for it. But a muscle looking down on 6 feet was playing frontman. He put a knotted hand on my arm, and when he spoke, it sounded like a gear factory doing double time.
Slow down, Pilgrim. The room you're looking for is the other way.
Yeah, well, this one says office.
That's the trouble with you guys who read. Can't take hints.
Spell it out.
Beat it.
Not until I see Louis Desmond.
What's your business?
I'll tell it to him.
You owe him some dough?
No, I don't.
Then he ain't interested.
He will be.
Listen, Junior,
Come on, get him off of me, punk.
What's all the noise, Patsy? Sightseer without a ticket.
My name's Regan.
Cup?
Maybe.
You want me to bounce him down the stairs, boss? Maybe. What do you want?
Talk.
That's always a waste of time.
Not if it's about Georgia Bascom.
Come on in. Never saw you around here before, Regan.
No, I can't afford it.
Oh, don't say that. Some people go out of here with more than they come in with.
Yeah, you.
Guess you're right at that. Cigar?
No, thanks.
Well, what about Georgia, Regan?
You tell me.
That doesn't add. You came to see me.
She's got a worried mother.
They're all like that.
Now, this one figures you're doing a little forcing.
Oh.
You'd know more about that.
Give me a clue.
Blackmail, maybe?
You're a kick. Arthur Godfrey'd love to get a hold of you.
I come too high.
Let me give you some good advice. Go home and pull a blanket over your head and say it's all a bad dream.
You know, you talk a lot, mister, but you don't say much. What's the hold on Georgia?
All right, wise guy. Honey. Come over here, baby. Regan, you know this girl?
I've seen a picture.
Georgia, this is a peeper named Regan. He come to rescue you.
But what for, Mr. Regan?
$50.
My mother gave you that to come and take me back?
Something like that.
But I can't go.
Why not?
Well,
Go ahead. Show him, baby.
look, Regan. 3 carats.
With a wedding band to match.
On what dice table did you pick those up?
Stop the noise, Regan. Congratulate the lady.
Not on a bad mistake.
Listen, Shamus.
Oh, never mind him, Louis. He doesn't matter.
When did the furs come?
Louis said soon. Tell Mama we're married and not to worry. We're going away for a few days.
Ensenada for some gambling and fishing.
You won't enjoy it.
Sure I will. You'll be in L.A.
The alley behind the Five Aces Club hadn't been dusted in a week. My brown flannel suit fixed that. Well, I picked myself up and made it for the car. Moving north on Vermont, I tried to add a couple of things. There was a funny smell in Louis's office when I first walked in, like rope on fire. Somebody'd been there before me who smoked cubebs. Desmond worked on cigars. Georgia held a king-size Pall Mall. Well, whoever it was still played it coy. About 1 o'clock, I started raising a small campaign with the Lyon's door knocker. His dream must have been a real good one because it took him 10 minutes to get to the door. He was wearing a nightgown, and he looked like a poor imitation of the Fisk tire ad. All that was missing was the candle.
Regan, I told you not to bother me until after 10 a.m.
It's no bother.
Get out of here, let a man sleep.
Your dreams will be bad.
What do you mean?
You just lost a client.
What's the matter? The money phony?
Georgia Bascom married Desmond. There's nothing I can do about it.
Well, think of something. Say you married her first.
You're out of your mind.
So it's a bad idea. Get a good
Yeah, I already have.
What is it?
You give Mrs. Bascom her case back.
Well, you can't do that.
Try me.
Think a minute, Regan. She's come to us for help. A lonely woman with no place to turn entrusts her trouble to International.
You got that 50 spent?
It's not the money. It's the moral obligation.
Oh, stop it, will you? You don't give blood anymore since you found out somebody'd pay for it.
You're getting out of line.
You're the only guy in town who can turn a shaving cut into a bankroll.
That's enough. Let's do it this way. You go over to Mrs. Bascom and give her the lowdown. Let her decide if she wants you to carry on or not.
We sure go to a lot of trouble for a 50.
I need a lot of new stuff around the place.
Well, it's close to Christmas, right to Santa Claus. Well, I left the Lyon looking for a fountain pen, and I drove out to Venice Boulevard in the Pierpont Hotel. The place still looked the same. A black Nash was parked up the block, the motor going. A couple of cats were doing a duet on a garbage can. I climbed the stairs to the second floor, and I started down the hall for 210, walking real easy to keep the boards from creaking, but somebody else didn't care about the noise. There was a gun with a silencer working in Mrs. Bascom's room. I pushed the door in, but by then all I could hear was silence. The light showed an open window with a fire escape, and the wind was blowing the curtains. Mrs. Bascom lay face down on the bed, real still, and the holes in her blanket were turning wet. The Lion really lost a client that time. Well, it didn't take Sanducci and the boys long to get there. The fingerprint man and the photographers went to work in the room. Sanducci picked me. He had a grouch on like a fat lady in an upper berth.
What's the matter, Regan? You get lost?
What do you mean?
You're pretty far from home.
Well, I get around.
Who is she?
Name's Eleanor Bascom.
I know that. What'd she do? Where'd she come from?
I don't know.
What were you doing out here?
She called in the Lion. Her daughter ran off with Louis Desmond.
Oh, he in it? How far?
Ask him.
Mrs. Bascom wants you to bring her daughter back?
She wanted to know if the girl was moving into a racket.
Was she?
I haven't found out.
I should have known better than to ask a detective. Why didn't she call us?
She was behind on her taxes.
What do you do, Private? Sit up nights figuring ways to make my job harder?
You through with me?
No. Who killed her, Regan?
I don't know.
Bad choice of words.
Go check a black Nash parked up the street.
Got a license number?
No, I haven't.
Thanks a lot.
Look, I'm no medium. I didn't know she was marked.
Any other big ideas?
A few.
Well, keep them to yourself. They're all wrong. Now get out of here.
Yeah. Say, Sanducci.
Yeah?
The Lion can handle another client now.
So what?
Want to sign up? Well, I went home and slept. Coffee and warmed-over biscuits at the drugstore took care of breakfast the next morning. Then I checked the phone book. Louis Desmond's home address turned up on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and so I drove out there. It was on a corner. A 2-story colonial place with white colors and green shutters. The doorbell sounded like a second chorus of the Hollywood Bowl. The Japanese maid let me in, and I waited in the anteroom. That's when I caught that peculiar smell again. Somebody had just been there who smoked those Q-Beb cigarettes. Well, a couple of minutes later, a tall blonde fighting 30 stepped up to me. She smelled like she just crawled out of a bottle of Platine. It was a bright morning, but she had the kind of look that had you wishing for an eclipse.
Well, what do you want?
Louis Desmond.
Census taker?
No.
What's he done?
I don't know yet. Where is he?
I don't know where he is. He didn't come home last night.
Lots of work at the office?
Card room out in Gardena.
Lots of work out there?
He didn't say. He doesn't tell me everything.
Should he?
Depends on what you think of your marriage vows.
Who are you?
His wife. Want a drink, mister?
Sure.
What'll it be?
Yours?
Bourbon. You pour. I don't know when to stop.
All right. Here you go.
To marriage. It's a mess.
Cigarette?
Never touch him. Interferes with my drinking.
Who smokes the Q-Bebs?
Is that what that stuff is?
Yeah.
The little guy walked in here looking for Louis and smelled up the place.
Hiya, Stella.
Oh, hello, Patsy. Just in time for a drink.
Company?
Yeah. What's your name, fella?
He knows.
You learn hard, don't you, Regan?
What's going on?
He's an eye.
So what?
So he gets a bounce.
He's my friend.
Beat it, Seamus, or I'll split you.
Stay right where you are. This is my house, and I'll entertain who I want.
With the boss's liquor?
I've got some rights.
Well, figure out what they are and try 'em on the boss.
I don't like you, Patsy.
Beat it, Peeper.
Get your paws off of me. Come on, get him off.
Stop it, Patsy. Stop it, I said.
Well, you hit him pretty hard, lady.
No, I didn't. His head's soft.
Well, I left her picking up pieces of glass, and I drove back toward Hollywood. I was moving east on Sunset, trying to make some sense out of Desmond's domestic life, when I spotted that black sedan again. It was doing a real bad tag job on me. I pushed the pedal closer to the floor, but the sedan had better gas. It caught me going around a bend past Beverly Glen and started pushing me. Oh, it was a great place for a boulevard stop, but none showed. All it did was a reflection in my rearview mirror of the driver in the black sedan. It was feminine, and the voice spelled out Georgia Bascom. That's when she moved in for a closer look.
You are listening to the story of the gambler and his ladies, tonight's adventure with Jeff Regan, investigator. Listen, this is good news. Good news for you if you're between the ages of 20 and 26 and a half, married or single, a high school graduate, and want to fly for the United States Air Force. Yes, the Air Force Aviation Cadet Program is offering you the opportunity to become a pilot officer in the mightiest Air Force in history. You can be one of the Air Force's men of renown. And there's more offered than the pride you feel in being a member of America's flying team. For after your 52 weeks of training, you'll graduate as a second lieutenant in the Air Force with an income of more than $300 per month. Remember, the Air Force offers you what it offered General Jimmy Doolittle, General Carl Spaatz, and General Hoyt Vandenberg, now at 42, the Air Force Chief of Staff. Call at your local Army and Air Force recruiting station tomorrow. Apply to become an aviation cadet. And now, back to the story of the gambler and his ladies and Jeff Regan, investigator.
Well, things were moving as fast as the last reel in a Western movie. The Lyon sent me out to see a lady who was having daughter trouble. Georgia Bascom had done a tie-in with a gambler named Louis Desmond. Only it looked real permanent. She was wearing his wedding ring, and the mother ended up carrying a couple of bullets, and homicide moved in. That's when I met a blonde at Desmond's house who said she was Louis's wife. Well, I was working on the mess when a black sedan with Georgia at the wheel ran me off the road, and the slugs began to fly. I peeled myself off the side of the hill, and I got in touch with the police. Sanducci took over and invited me to headquarters for some more talk. He put me in a little room with pale green walls and sat behind a big desk chewing a dead cigar. He was taking me all in like a Hoover vacuum cleaner on a dirty rug.
Well, how do you feel, Regan?
All right.
You shouldn't.
Why not?
Looks to me like from here on in you're a marked man.
I'll get along.
It'll be real interesting to see how.
All right, now look, have you got something to say?
Maybe.
Well, let's hear it.
Relax, Regan. You're not going anyplace.
You can't hold me. I was the one who got shot at.
Well, that's enough. I'll work out a way to hold you for creating a disturbance.
It won't work.
Listen, you. The bullets we pulled out of your upholstery match the ones in Mrs. Bascom.
So what?
So we figure she was knocked off because she knew something somebody didn't want said. We also figure that applies to you.
Yeah, well, that gets you nothing.
All right, Regan. Play it your way this time. You'll come running back when the haters close in.
Don't make book on it.
Well, if you gotta get yourself knocked off, don't mess up our city's streets.
Yeah, I'll be real careful.
Oh, and wear a dark suit. Save our morticians a little trouble.
That all?
Yeah, go on, beat it, sure. Oh, Regan.
Yeah.
E buffi de tuo padre.
What's that mean?
Your father's mustache.
Well, it was late afternoon by the time I walked out of headquarters. The sun was still working, but it was cold. The cab driver, with a lot of conversation, drove me to my place over on Taft. When I opened my front door, I smelled it again, those cubebs. A small face was sitting on my sofa, sucking on them. It belonged to a guy who had to stand on a box to see over a fox terrier. When I shut the door behind me, he ground the cigarette into an ashtray and turned on a nervous look like a pig in a football factory.
Your landlady let me in, Mr. Regan. I hope you don't mind. I have to talk to you.
We met before.
We did? I don't remember.
Just me and your cigarettes.
Huh? Oh, you mind if I smoke?
You just finished one.
Oh, yes, so I did. May I have a drink, then? Just a small one.
All right.
Thank you. I generally don't drink, but tonight Yeah, thank you. Now, I barely know where to begin.
Well, you better figure it out. You haven't got much time.
Yes. Well...
Start with a name.
Is that necessary?
Yeah, it is.
Loper, Max Loper. I'm a businessman.
What kind?
What kind? Furrier. Yeah, I'm a furrier, Mr. Regan. All sorts of furs. Ermine's nice. Generally, I prefer sable, but it depends on the woman, you know.
What does Georgia get?
Beg pardon?
Let it go.
I'm not the man I used to be, Mr. Regan. My fortunes have changed. Yeah, it changed. I think I better have that cigarette.
Save it for later and start making sense.
Well, I need help.
Why come to me?
Well, Mrs. Bascom thought enough of you to ask you to help her. You see, I know Mrs. Bascom. That is, I knew Mrs. Bascom. Her death was so sudden.
It was forced.
Yeah, so the papers say. But, Mr. Regan, I want you to know I didn't do it.
Who said you did?
Well, nobody yet. But I didn't do it.
Look, why tell me?
There's nobody else I can tell.
Try the police.
No, that's what I can't do. I want you to prove to them that I wouldn't do a thing like that.
Loper, what's your tie-in with Desmond?
Desmond? Why? There is no tie-in.
You were at his card room. I smelled your cigarettes there. You got nothing, I guess, and you went to his house.
Mr. Regan, that's got nothing to do with it.
I think different.
But you're wrong, all wrong.
Convince me.
I didn't do the murder. That's what I want you to tell the police.
Who did?
I don't know.
Well, now I think you do. Come on. Who killed George's mother?
It was her stepmother who was killed.
Give me some more.
Oh, you got me all confused. I guess coming to you for help was a bad idea.
Something was.
I'll find somebody else who doesn't ask so many questions. I better go.
No, not yet, little man. You got too many answers.
Take your hands off me. Now, Mr. Regan, I never used one of these, but the theory is simple. Just pull the trigger.
If you can find it.
Don't urge me. Open the door. Go on.
Sure.
Now step away. See you later, Mr. Regan.
Hey, Loper. He made it to the staircase, and then the noise came. A couple of bullets flew up the spiral and caught him in the chest. He stopped in midair for a second like a yo-yo on a string, and then he toppled over and rolled down. By the time I got to him, he was all used up. Well, a call into homicide brought some of the boys out, and they took care of him. A fat guy with a head like a plunger took him pictures for a paper, and a girl with a leaky fountain pen got the story. Took about an hour and a half to clear my place. But the minute the crowd moved out, the Lyon moved in. He had a sheet of paper in one hand, and his face was lit up like an old maid at a cocktail party.
This concerns Louis Desmond and Georgia Bascom. You interested?
Yeah?
Desmond's got a wife, and her name's not Georgia.
No, it's Stella, and she's a ripe candidate for a drunk tank.
What else do you know about her?
She's jealous.
Well, there's no record any place of a divorce or of a marriage between Georgia and Desmond. That whole setup's a phony.
Tell me why.
Georgia's father, named Peter Bascom, was a furrier. And he was once in on a fur job with the same Louis Desmond.
Go on.
The old Bascom ended up with a bullet in him, and Louis with a pile of dough.
How did it work?
I can't find out everything. You got to do something.
You know a Max Loper?
Never heard of him.
You got an address on this Georgia?
The Arena Hotel, room 406, on Catalina off Wilshire.
All right.
The way I figured, an insurance company might be real interested to get hold of her.
No, the gas chamber's got priority.
We figured the swindle first, collect the fat bonus, then let the city handle her any way it wants. Call me when you get it all sewed up.
What are you going to be doing?
Resting at home. I'm all worn out.
Yeah, well, that figures. You've been doing a little thinking. The Lorena Hotel, 6 stories of plush carpet and gold paint. It was night when I got there and the neon was on. The buzzer brought the door open and Georgia Bascom stood there carrying an overcoat. She had her purse under her arm and it figured she was leaving. When she saw me, she turned on a surprised look.
Oh, Mr. Regan.
Moving out?
Just a little errand.
It'll keep. Shut the door.
Now, see here.
Shut up.
Well, that's a lot of nerve.
Don't let it bother you. There are bigger things.
Like what?
A fur job you and Louie are working on.
What are you talking about?
And a little murder. Throw your purse on the sofa.
I will not.
Come on, lady. It's getting heavy. Now open the closet door. Come on.
There. I hope you're satisfied.
I'm not much on fashions. Read them to me.
3 ermine, 3 sable.
10,000 apiece.
More.
Max Lopers.
Yeah.
Well, you can't wear them all. You got a friend?
I don't need one.
All right, sis. What is it?
Nothing.
That's your version.
You could be wrong.
When'd you marry Desmond?
Last week.
Bad answer. He's got a wife named Stella. Bigamy will get him in trouble.
Well, that's his problem.
No, it's yours, too, if the courts can prove you knew.
All right, I didn't marry him.
Then why the wedding ring?
Hey, you ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, I do.
Why don't you get out of here?
Louie's not new on fur jobs. He knows how much work it is to palm him off.
You're talking to yourself.
Loper never got to outlive a double cross.
What are you going to do with that?
Nothing. Homicide will work it out.
I didn't kill anybody.
You'll work up a sweat proving it.
Louis did it, honest. He killed my stepmother because she knew how the job worked. He gave it to Loper, too. He would...
Hiya, friends.
It must be raining. The worms are coming to the top.
Hello, Louis. Regan's got it figured. I was just stalling him till you got here.
Sure, Georgia. I know.
Honest, Louis, honest. I didn't mean to say you did the knockoffs.
We'll talk about it later.
You better finish it now. You're not going to be around.
We'll see.
They got a spot all staked out for you up north.
Isn't that interesting? Regan, I got a set of instructions for you. I want you to be real nice and follow them.
What's in it for me?
You kill me, Seamus. I'm holding all the cards. You want to rake in the pot.
I better get going, Louis. We shouldn't be seen together right now.
Slow down, baby. I got something for you, too.
But Louis,
Big mouth.
Big mouth.
Look, you didn't have to hit her more than once.
She got off easy. Everybody's got 32 teeth.
Desmond moved us out of the apartment and down the hall. Georgia was beginning to sob, but Desmond wasn't impressed. He held the gun under his coat and walked behind us careful, like an elephant on a crate of eggs. The button brought the elevator, and the three of us went in, and then it started down. When the door swung open on the first floor, a whiff of bourbon came floating in, packing a .32. Louis turned white.
Stella!
I told him if he kept messing around, he was going to have trouble at home.
You want to give me the gun?
No. What's your name, girlie?
Georgia.
Were you in love with Louis?
I don't know.
Well, go find out. You want it now, Regan? It's empty.
You know, lady, you fixed nothing.
What do you mean?
Where you're going, you'll all be together again. Well, it was all over fast, like $1 dinner. The coroner's office sent out some boys for Georgia and Louis, and Sanducci picked up Stella. Desmond had himself a pretty good thing. Do a tie-in with a furrier and move the furs across the border with nobody making a fuss. Oh, it was slow work, but $10,000 a week's pretty good pay, and it was real safe. Loper wasn't going to say the furs were even stolen until they were turned into money. Of course, he never got to say it at all. Everything would have been all right if Stella didn't see green every time Louis saw blonde. Well, the insurance company thanked us for what we did to expose the fraud. The Lyon was unhappy. He said they should have shown their gratitude with something more lasting. They gave it to him, a 1949 pocket calendar.
Jack Webb is featured as Jeff Regan, with Herb Butterfield as Anthony J. Lyon. It's CBS at this same time next week for more hard-boiled action and mystery with Jeff Regan, Investigator. Written by Larry Roman, produced by Sterling Tracy. Included in tonight's cast were Mary Lansing, Marvin Miller, Pat McGeehan, Lorette Philbrandt, Jack Petruzzi, Yvonne Patey, and Sidney Miller. Original music for this program is by Milton Charles. Bob Stevenson speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, those of you who listen to the Dragnet podcast over at radiodragnet.com may find this episode slightly familiar. I used this as our last Great Detectives preview. I played it several months before we do it over here, so that people wouldn't be like, oh, I heard that already, even though they did. Hopefully it's more like, this sounds kind of familiar. Now, the title was tricky, because I thought when we did this on Dragnet that I had this pretty well set, that it was really called The Gambler and His Ladies. What's confusing here is that at first the announcer refers to it as The Gambler and His Lady. And then later on in the show, it's referred to twice as The Gambler and His Ladies. Based on the way the story played out, unless somebody's got a script that says otherwise, I'm going to think it's the gambler and his ladies, because that makes sense with what actually happened in the story. This episode was classic, had some fantastic lines in it. My favorite was when he was talking to the casino owner, and the casino owner said, you know, don't be like that, Regan. Some people walk out of here with more money than they came in with. And Regan said, yeah, you. So this was well written. This episode, actually, and the last few, have not been written by E. Jack Newman, who wrote the first several shows, but rather been written by Larry Roman. Roman wrote some episodes of Suspense and Escape. Also wrote on Rocky Jordan. Had a ton of Rocky Jordan episodes in the Radio Gold Index database, but no television credits for him. All right, well, we do have some listener comments I want to get to here. First one, these old-time radio shows are great. I still miss Pat Novak for Hire. Well, me too. I did actually get a chance to see Tudor Owen in an episode of Gangbusters, The Unholy Three. Tudor Owen, of course, played Jocko Madigan. And I didn't even recognize the voice, so he definitely had a lot of flexibility in the way he voiced the characters. He played an absolutely nasty character. The episode is out on it's part of a collection you can listen to on archive.org of Gangbusters episodes. It's The Unholy Three from 1955. Also, if you happen to be in the Seattle area and you like Pat Novak for Hire, there's a company, they're actually acting out Pat Novak episodes before a live audience. It will be aired, done again tonight, and the 20th, and then a week from today on the 27th. They will do that again. And then they are looking at sometime in the future actually producing original Pat Novak productions. That's at seattlestagerot.org if you happen to be in the Seattle land area and want to go down and catch a show. And then one more comment from Podcast Alley. Great show. Listen to it at work all the time. All right, well, thanks so much. I appreciate all your kind comments. We will be back next week with the final episode in existence of Jack Webb as Jeff Regan. And then after that, we'll have a new Jeff Regan. So join us next week for that. Before we get started, I do want to let you know about our sponsors. If you like the flexibility to live your life and do the things that are important to you, you'll like GoToMeeting. With GoToMeeting's conferencing solutions, you can meet virtually with clients and business partners and reduce the cost associated with doing business. GoToMeeting is from Citrix, the makers of the trusted GoToMyPC product. Like GoToMyPC, it's simple to use and doesn't require you to learn new technology. Listeners to the great detectives of old-time radio can try GoToMeeting free for 45 days. For this special offer, visit gotomeeting.com/podcast. That's gotomeeting.com/podcast. Well, if you've been listening to Let George Do It, this episode is going to be maybe a little bit jarring. Last week we heard the last episode of 1948 last week, and here we have the first episode of 1949. Where they change the musical score, and we get a kind of an interim score, but they also make a few other changes, and we'll see how they work out. Let's go ahead and get into today's episode, Murder and One to Go.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Murder and One to Go. Another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice. Stage is my stock and trade. If life's giving you so much punishment you're buckling at the knees, you need my help. George Valentine. Write full details.
Dear Mr. Valentine, do you remember Carol Gordon? Once she was as glamorous and famous as any movie star you can name today. Then some 18 years ago, when talkies came in, she faded out of the limelight. Dead? Perhaps. But if she isn't, I must find her. The only clue I have is that someone thinks he saw Carol Gordon about a year ago down on Skid Row. The enclosed check is a retainer.
Check is a retainer, and if you succeed in finding her, there will be a substantial bonus. Sincerely yours, Henry Crichton.
Henry Crichton. Business management and artist representation.
Carol Gordon?
Careful. Don't say you remember her, Brooks. He'll give your age away.
Well, I don't remember.
2 world-shaking events took place in the 20s. The stock market crash and Carol Gordon. Her autograph always gets you 2 of Wallace Reed in a trade.
And now Skid Row. Well, maybe this Mr. Crichton knows of a small part for her.
Well, if he's gambling with $250 just to play Good Samaritan, I'd like to shake hands with that gentleman.
And if he isn't, it might be a good idea to find out what's on his mind. Pretty swank. Currier and Ives prints right out in the hall.
The Dorset Building. The Agent's Paradise. The house the 10% goes.
George!
Hey, I think that's coming from our client's office, Brooksy.
Oh. He's dead! He's dead! In there! Oh, sorry.
All right, now, sit. All right, take it easy. Get hold of yourself.
What?
Try to calm down. Who's dead?
Mr. Crichton. I just came back from lunch. I found him lying there on the floor. The fire poker next to it. His head. Oh, won't you please call the police?
Valentine, I know you were put on this earth to keep me from being bored, to see that I don't fall into a rut. But please, let's keep this murder nice and simple.
But take another look at this letter, will you, Lieutenant?
You must admit Crichton might have been killed because he was determined to find Carol Gordon.
Miss Brooks, I used to be a Carol Gordon fan. Why, it got so Mrs. Riley wouldn't let me go to the movies when her pictures were playing.
Why, Lieutenant?
But nobody's even thought of that woman in years and years.
Crichton did, Lieutenant.
Well, being just a plodding, unimaginative copper, I'm going to have to stick to facts. Namely, Crichton got his head bashed in with a poker from which all the fingerprints were carefully wiped off.
Oh, that's quite a fact to be stuck with.
There was a struggle, and the plug of the electric clock on the desk was pulled out of the wall. Now, that sets the time of the murder at 12:35. And a half a dozen people saw Miss Jackson, Crichton's secretary, in the coffee shop all through the lunch hour.
Lieutenant, I understand Crichton had quite an imposing list of clients.
Yes, sir, and I'm going to talk to every one of them. No flights of fancy for me, pal. Incidentally, Valentine. How are you going to go about tracing Carol Gordon? Obviously, she doesn't want to be found, and she probably doesn't look anything like she used to. And Skid Row is a pretty big place, you know.
George, I think the lieutenant is trying to imply that it's going to be like looking for a needle in a haystack.
Well, what's so hard about finding a needle in a haystack?
Well, that's what I... What?
All you do is get a magnet. The needle comes to you. Now, look, Mr. Gabranian, what'll it cost me to have you run this picture in your movie house tomorrow afternoon?
You mean you're going to pay me, fella? What's wrong with it, fella?
Oh, nothing's wrong with it, Mr. Gabranian. It was a super colossal production back there in 1928.
Yeah, Romance in April, starring Carol Gordon.
Never heard that one, fella.
You in the movie business and never heard
of 1928, I was running a coffee pit. I wish I was still running it.
Well, anyway, you wouldn't mind showing this picture for $50, would you?
There's just one thing we ought to tell you, Mr.
Yeah, I knew this was coming, fella.
There's no sound, no music in this picture. It's a silent.
Something new, huh?
You don't think for a moment I'd talk you into anything that would damage the reputation of Gabranian's cameo theater, the gem of Skid Row?
Are you kidding? I don't even advertise the picture we're playing. I just hang out a sign, soft seats, open all night, 15 cents.
Then this ought to be right down your alley. The slumber of your selected clientele won't be disturbed by any noises coming off the screen. Just a little piano music for mood.
Yeah, lady, you might got something there.
This is a gal who knows all the angles.
Yeah, on her they look good, too. Too bad the cameo ain't barbecue house like it used to be. You're a real nice filly, lady.
Why, thank you, Mr. Gabranian. I don't know whether to blush or whinny.
Huh? What's that?
Now, what about it? Does Romance in April play here tomorrow?
It plays. Money in advance, fella.
No objection to me selling the tickets?
You sell, but remember the tickets are numbered. I'll know just how many people go in.
Oh, you're a trusting soul, Mr. Gabrenian.
You said it.
Yes, sir. Here's your ticket, sir. Go right in.
Oh, thank you.
Well, business is pretty slow, darling.
Uh-huh.
Well, you can't say Mr. Gabrenian didn't advertise the revival of Romance in April.
Yeah, with the late Mr. Crichton's money.
So far, your magnets attracted nothing but the usual Skid Row characters. Maybe the whole thing...
Wait a minute. Hold it, Brooksy.
Can you tell me if the features started yet?
In just a few minutes, sir.
Good. One, please. Thank you.
George, didn't you recognize?
Yeah, Brooksy, yeah. We're beginning to draw a better class of people.
Anthony Chapman, the movie heartthrob. Now, what would he be doing in a place like this? And trying to look inconspicuous.
An interesting question, Angel. I bet the answer's even more interesting.
I called up before, young man. I understand Romance in April goes on at 2:15. Is that correct?
Yeah, you've got 2 minutes to make it.
Just like to be sure, time is money. 15 cents? Is that correct? And I understand the picture runs an hour and 12 minutes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Someone else out slumming.
A little man in a big briefcase. Brooksy, what's your guess? Vice president of a bank? A successful insurance salesman?
Or just a lover of the silent cinema.
You know, I got a definite feeling we started something here. What?
Hey! Look what we've got now, George.
The carriage trade drawing up. Now I'm sure we ought to change prices before 6.
You can call for me in about an hour, Ralph.
Yes, ma'am.
One seat in the loge, please.
Loge? I doubt if we can build you one at a moment's notice.
What? Oh, well, whatever you've got.
Thank you.
I'd say that was about $5,000 worth of mink on the hoof.
Hey, look, Gabrenian actually opened the door for us.
I don't blame the man for being overwhelmed.
Looks like all kinds of people don't mind coming to this popcorn cove to see Romance in April.
One ticket, please. It's 15 cents, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're just in time for the picture.
See, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Hope you don't mind the pennies. That's all I have.
Oh, they add up just the same. There you are. I hope you enjoy the picture.
Yeah, I'm sure I will.
I take it you're a Carol Gordon fan.
Yeah, and her severest critic.
Did you hear that, Brooksy? That's it, Angel, I think.
Carol Gordon? Oh, that couldn't be, George.
I could be wrong. But there was something about her eyes.
But she seemed so old and pathetic.
Come on, Brooksy. Gabrenian can take over the box office now. We're going inside and make sure.
Must have broken Gabrenian's heart to hire a piano player for the day.
That girl on the screen, Angel. Look at it carefully. Don't you see some resemblance between her and the woman we saw before us at the box office?
Sorry, George. I can't talk myself into it.
Yeah. Maybe I am punching a little too hard.
Oh, she was beautiful, wasn't she?
Even in that costume with a waistline down to her knees.
And not a bad actress to compete with these titles. Ellen looked at the faded flowers and thought of the waste of her own life. Oh, brother.
No!
George.
Oh, the waste of life. My life. What did I do?
It was Carol Gordon.
What happened?
Come on, stick with me, Brooksy.
Her room is right down the hall here, folks.
Yeah, see, Brooksy? I told you she didn't just vanish. We were about giving up hope, mister.
We've been over this block with a fine-tooth comb for the last hour.
Can imagine the places you've been in, miss. Now, this here hotel don't rightly belong down in this neighborhood. Why, do you know we change bed sheets and towels twice a week?
Yeah, well, bully for you, but what did you say was the name she was using?
Ethel Mills. That is, if it's the woman you've been describing. And you know, funny thing.
What's that?
Huh?
Well, about 20 minutes ago, while I was away from the desk, somebody left a bottle of champagne for her.
Champagne?
Yep. All wrapped up fancy, too. Brought it right up to her. No other hotel around here gives room service like we do. Well, here it is. She's in there all right, and I think I know what happened.
What do you mean?
Well, if Ethel has the bottle around, it don't last long.
Well, something might have happened to her. In her frame of mind.
Yeah, we better take a look, friend.
Yeah, that's right, young fella. Don't want anything bad happening to the reputation of the hotel. Out like a light.
Well, don't just stand there. Where are those towels you're so proud of?
All right, over there.
Hey, come on. Try to sit up.
I can't. It hurt. Usually she don't feel like that until the next day. And the bottle's only half empty. Seems somebody left a card with it, too.
To Carol Gordon. On the day of her triumphant return to the screen.
Wait, this wet towel ought to help her.
No time for that, Brooksy. We have to get her to a hospital.
But, George, she's only
been poisoned. One sniff of this bottle will tell you that.
Poison?
Somebody else followed her here from the cameo. Somebody who wants to see Carol Gordon dead.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Meanwhile, a word about winter driving. If you find that January days are kind of chilly, don't forget, cold weather is rough on your car, too. It may mean a lot of grinding starting wear and extra drain on your car's battery. But a sure way to get fast starts, to keep your battery from working overtime, and to keep operating costs down, is to use Chevron Supreme gasoline. For this high-octane motor fuel has special blending agents that give fast starts and speedy warm-up every time you use the starter. Besides lending a helping hand to your battery, Chevron Supreme gives fast pickup in traffic, smooth acceleration, and the extra power that makes your car great on hills. It's a premium quality gasoline, and it's climate-tailored for each different altitude and temperature zone in the West. That means you can depend on it the year round for fast starts and smoother extra power wherever you motor. Get a tank full of Chevron Supreme gasoline tomorrow. Get it at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations, where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. And now back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. Someone hires you to trace down an old movie star named Carol Gordon. Even before you can get started, your client is found murdered. You pick up from there and finally locate the once famous beauty in a cheap Skid Row hotel. The payoff there is that someone's tried to kill her, too. If you're like George Valentine, you won't rest till you find out why murder is singing such a merry song of mayhem.
Valentine, I don't care where you've got Carol Gordon. Get her down here to headquarters.
Well, you can't blame me, Lieutenant, for hiding her out when she left the hospital. Somebody's out to get her.
Now, look, chum boy, I'm not too sure the lady didn't try to poison herself.
Yes, so you've been saying, with bullheaded regularity.
Well, you forget the elevator boy in Crichton's building. He recognized Carol Gordon's picture, put her right on the scene of the crime. Now, guilty conscience. I want to talk to her.
Uh-huh. Maybe you got an answer for those three strangely out-of-place characters who showed up at the revival of Romance in April.
Oh, Tony Chapman and Miss Ferris are both movie people. Maybe morbid curiosity brought them down there. Who knows?
Riley. It seems a little more than coincidence that just when Crichton hired me to find Miss Gordon, those two should decide to take in one of her pictures at the cameo.
Well,
also, both Chapman and Miss Ferris were managed by Crichton. And what makes it even more screwier, they just became engaged to each other. And yet they show up at that theater at different times.
I don't care how it sounds. Chapman has an alibi for the time of Crichton's murder. The attendant in the garage of his department house vouches for the time. As for Miss Ferris, well, as far as she's concerned, she has no motive.
And the mousy little man who showed up at the revival. The one with a briefcase under his arm. I told you I saw him hanging around the hospital, too.
Okay. If and when we find this little gnome, I'll talk to him. In the meantime, you get Carol Gordon down here and fast.
Here you are, Miss Gordon. My car is parked right over here.
There's really nothing I can tell the lieutenant, Mr. Valentine.
Well, you just tell him the truth, Carol. And if he growls at you a little, don't let him upset you.
Okay, here we are. The three of us can fit into the front seat.
Well, I know my story sounds a little weak, but I did drop in to see Henry Crichton on a personal matter. Once we were good friends. When I found him like that, I didn't stop to think. I hurried down the stairs and out of the building.
Yes, sure, I understand. I don't know if I can turn around here on the hill. I think it's the quickest way back to headquarters.
What's the matter?
Oh.
Hey, George! We're rolling down the hill.
Somebody's been monkeying around with the brakes. They won't hold.
Oh, try to keep it straightened out, George.
We're going faster. We're going up on the sidewalk.
Hang on. I'm going to crash. I was too close for comfort. Everybody all right?
What about you, Miss Gordon?
I'm just shaken up.
Good thing I picked out a wooden fence.
What happened? Another drunken driver.
Looks like somebody tried to get all three of us this time.
Yes, doesn't it?
Oh, wait a minute.
Huh? What's the matter?
You see that Miss Gordon gets to headquarters. I just spotted someone I want to talk to.
Okay, George.
Hey, let me through here, will you? One side, please. Hey, you come back here. A few questions I want to ask you.
No. Let go of me, please. I don't know anything. There's nothing I can tell you.
Now, look, Buster, I've been dreaming about you in that briefcase. What makes you pop up all over the place?
Well, I've been following you just to see that Miss Gordon was all right. That nothing happened to her.
Come on. Who are you?
The name is Moody, sir. Walter Moody, you see? Here's my card.
Walter Moody, 6th Street Grammar School, principal. I don't get it, friend.
I am the oldest and the most faithful member of the Carol Gordon fan club. I venture to say the only member after all these years.
Are you kidding?
Oh, she was a fine actress. I have a great big shelf just full of scrapbooks. Her pictures, almost every line that was ever written about Miss Gordon.
Hey, this is just cockeyed enough to turn out to be useful.
I beg your pardon.
Would you help Miss Gordon if she were in real trouble?
Oh, I'd do anything, sir. Anything.
Okay, Mr. Moody. Let's begin by taking a look at that 5-foot shelf of yours. 'You mean Carol actually used to correspond with you, Mr. Moody?
Oh, yes. Personally. I used to send the information in a newsletter to fans all over the country.
This must have been a big event in her life, according to this communique. My dearest number one fan, something has happened here today in this beautiful little town that's made me the happiest girl in the world. Soon I hope to be able to tell you all about it.
I've always been curious about that, Mr. Valentine. What did she mean?
Eudora, California, December 9th, 1929. You know, Mr. Moody, I may be able to satisfy your curiosity.
1929, December. Yep, right here in my records.
December 9th. Ethel Mills and Anthony Switzer.
You can remember them two very well. When first couples are married, as justice of the peace.
Anthony Switzer could be Tony Chapman. Why not?
Huh? Look here, son, what's all the shooting about anyway?
What do you mean, Pops?
Well, just last week, fella was here, named Crichton. It's with a young lady. Long blonde hair. You want the same information?
I think you've really given me something to wedge with, Pops. Thanks a lot.
Naturally, I can't deny it, Valentine. It's a matter of record.
Maybe you didn't deny it, Chapman, but you certainly have done everything to keep your marriage to Carol Gordon a secret.
Don't make me out a heel, will you? When Talking Pictures came in, Carol simply disappeared. After a while, I thought she was dead.
You know, it would be a terrible shock to your fans, Chapman, to find out that you let your wife simply disappear when she may have needed you.
Don't I know that?
And now engaged to beautiful and blonde Miss Ferris.
No one can say I haven't tried to find my wife. When I heard about one of her pictures being shown, I even went to the theater thinking she might turn up.
Uh-huh. And when she did you follow her and leave a bottle of champagne so she could celebrate her triumphant return to the screen?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I lost her in the crowd after she ran out.
You know, Chapman, you'd fit in nicely as the murderer of Crichton if you didn't have such a perfect alibi.
I've been through all that with the police. The attendant downstairs in the garage told me to drive in at 12:30.
Yeah, I know. You told him you weren't locking the car.
Which I always do. But I'd lost my key. I haven't got around to getting one, as a matter of fact.
Okay, Chapman, okay. I'm just checking.
Anyway, now I can work out something with Carol and get a quiet divorce. Maybe...
Tony, I've been waiting hours for you down in the lobby. What in the world is gaining?
Valentine, I'd like you to meet Arlene Ferris, my fiancée.
Tell me, Miss Ferris, do you make it a practice to become engaged to men you know are married?
What?
Why
Tony.
did you have to do that, Valentine? Arlene didn't know, and there's really no reason why she should. The whole thing might have been smoothed over.
But you did know about Carol Gordon, didn't you, Arlene?
You must be out of your mind.
You and Henry Crichton paid a little visit to Eudora shortly before he was murdered.
Arlene?
Now, what was the deal? Were the two of you going to shake Chapman down after I located Carol?
This isn't true, is it, Arlene?
Why should I deny it? Seemed a very good idea at the time.
Good Lord.
Do you think I was infatuated with your worn-out boyish charm, your toupee, the caps on your teeth?
Shut up, you...
Who do you
Well,
think
if you two
are
are going to have an
tell me to
emotional
shut up?
wing-ding, you probably want a little privacy. Good day. Hey, Lieutenant. We can use this office in back of the garage.
Go on in, Miss Gordon.
Tell me, Valentine, why a garage? Why didn't you call up and ask me to meet you in a Turkish bath?
Oh, please, Lieutenant, the ladies.
Now, what's this all about?
Well, I didn't think you'd have any objections to Miss Gordon making a phone call.
Oh, for the love of Mike, why couldn't she have done it from my office?
It wouldn't have worked that way.
Oh, I don't know if I can say the things you told me, Mr. Valentine. I hate Tony. Hated him ever since he didn't lift a finger to help me. When he knew I was desperate.
Just do your best, Carol. As an actress, your best is better than you think. I'm sure of it.
Okay, here's his number. I'll dial it for you.
Well,
Here you are.
all right. Hello. Tony? This is Carol. Yes, I know this must be a shock to you. But listen, dear. Let me do the talking. Tony, I've been unfair to you all these years. I should have come back and let you have the divorce. It must have been dreadful for you. Couldn't we do that now? Quietly, so that no one need ever know. Then you'll be free. Yes. Meet me in 5 minutes. On the corner of State and McGovern. Please, hurry. Goodbye.
Oh, you were wonderful.
Yeah. That ought to get Mr. Chapman down here in the garage with the speed of light.
Light? Why don't you try shedding some once in a while, Valentine?
There shall be light, Lieutenant, I hope. Now, you ladies stay here in the office. Come on, Raleigh. Here's Chapman's custom job over here.
Well, what do I do? Just stand here and admire it? What the...
Come on back here, Lieutenant. We want to see this act without being seen.
Why'd you do that?
Just a pious hope. And if I'm wrong, I'll... Wait a minute. There's Chapman. Get back in his car.
That fool attendant must have locked it anyway.
Having trouble, Buster? I'll take those keys, this one in particular. The one you said you'd lost. Your fancy alibi.
Let go of this.
Remember your manners, Chapman. Let Chum Boy have the key.
What is this? A frame-up?
Oh, famous last words.
That's the trouble with elaborate alibis. People are so forgetful.
Or to say it another way, friend, you just put the finger on yourself.
George Valentine will be back in just a moment to explain his reasons for naming Chapman as the killer. Meanwhile, quite a few folks have the impression that the only values an artist knows are color values. But not so with artist Ren Wicks of Beverly Hills, California. When it comes to economy in car operation, Mr. Wicks knows the value of RPM motor oil. Here's Mr. Wicks' statement, quote, "It takes a lot of things to keep a car running. One thing is good motor oil. That's why I selected RPM years ago. It reduces wear, cuts repair bills," unquote. RPM motor oil will save wear in your car, too, will bring a new economy to your car operation. For this premium quality motor oil was developed precisely for modern high-speed engines. Chemical compounds in RPM keep your entire engine cleaner. They protect those finely polished, close-fitting parts. Protect them from corrosion, gum, lacquer, and carbon. If your car's about due for a drain and refill, give it a new lease on life by getting RPM motor oil. Remember, it's better for your car and for your pocketbook. Get RPM at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations where they say and mean, we'll take better care of your car. How did George Valentine come to suspect Chapman? Right at the moment, that's a question that's also troubling Lieutenant Riley.
Valentine, if I played hunches like you do, I'd be laughed out of the department. I have to stick to facts.
Well, that's the advantage I have, Lieutenant. When a hunch doesn't pay off, there's only Angel to do the laughing.
Oh, I only snicker. How long are you two going to talk shop?
For instance, the one hunch about running Carol Gordon's picture brought a lot of other things to the surface.
Chapman must have come down to the cameo all ready to follow Carol if she showed up. He and his lethal champagne.
Yeah, he also made a scooter out of my car.
Yeah, quite a mechanic. Old lover boy even knew how to stop the clock in Crichton's office at the right time to make his alibi stick.
George, I still don't know why you hunched Arlene out of the picture.
Oh, she had too good a deal with Crichton, blackmailing Chapman to spoil it. Everything would have turned out as planned if Chapman hadn't found out what his business manager was cooking up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, don't be so depressed, Lieutenant. I'll try to teach George a healthier respect for facts.
You shouldn't be bothering your lovely head with facts, Angel. Not with your corner in the market when it comes to figures.
Why, darling.
Oh, just stating a fact, sweetheart.
Oh, you can say the sweetest things, dearest.
Well, I've got a great big hunch my stomach can't stand much more of this, so goodbye, kids.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Let George Do It stars Robert Bailey as George with Francis Robinson as Brooksy. Wally Mayer appears as Lieutenant Riley. Tonight's story was written by David Victor and Herbert Little Jr. and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Jeanette Nolan as Carol Gordon, John McIntyre as Chapman, Virginia Gregg as Arlene, Howard McNear as Moody, Louis Van Ruten as Gabrenian, and Dick Ryan as the manager. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. The score definitely changed kind of the feel of the show. The score, of course, is still not quite right. We've got a few weeks till they introduce the score that will be used throughout the series. I don't think score is perhaps not the right word because they're using an organ here. An organ score, nevertheless. These type of episodes are always pretty fascinating to me when we're dealing with things like silent pictures. And silent pictures were often had subtle tributes played to them in a wide variety of media productions. For example, Batman had one episode with kind of some homages to that. And actually, Neil Hamilton, who played Commissioner Gordon, began out as a silent picture star. What kind of makes this ironic in an odd way is they're kind of remembering silent pictures, which were a forgotten art form for the most part in those times. And we're hearing about them honoring the forgotten silent pictures on a basically forgotten old-time radio show. Never completely forgotten. So I guess there's a circle to humanity and the way things go. This episode also had kind of a change from the way the show went. Usually, when we went to the last commercial break, the story was pretty well resolved and we get a preview of the next show. This time, we actually had to come back from the last commercial break to get an explanation as to why George reached the conclusion. And they use this in a number of different episodes. In some ways, it's almost common sense. If I want to go ahead and I've already resolved the whole story by the last break, you have no real reason to sit there and listen to the last commercials. Even if they may hope the previews of next week's shows will hold them, maybe they weren't finding that particularly effective. All right, well, we have a couple listener comments we want to get into. The first is from Podcast Alley. I love the interesting facts and the detective stories. Best thing on the radio. And then we also got a review for our app in the iTunes Store. First one of the new version, version 1.6.1. From OTR Junkie. I love the app. The host is great and the movies are a nice touch. I feel like part of an OTR family. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that kind review. All right, well, before we do get into today's show, I want to let you know about our sponsors. It can be a challenge to grow your business. It seems there are a never-ending list of activities that eat into limited time. That's why I'm so glad to have GoToMeeting as a sponsor, because GoToMeeting allows you to do more with the time you have. Whether it saves you a plane trip to Japan, a trip across town, GoToMeeting saves you time on travel. It can also give you greater flexibility in your scheduling. With GoToMeeting, you can have a meeting with clients in Los Angeles and then immediately afterwards be able to connect with vendors in San Diego through the convenience of GoToMeeting web conferencing. Listeners to the great detectives of old-time radio can try GoToMeeting free for 45 days. For this special offer, visit GoToMeeting.com/podcast. That's GoToMeeting.com/podcast. Start your free trial. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes. And we're kind of skipping around because we had skipped before and did the Night Before Christmas episode around Christmas time. So consequently, we're not going to do that again. And so we move on to the very next episode of Sherlock Holmes. This one is called The Case of the Iron Box. And this one I think you're going to enjoy. We got email a few weeks back from a listener wondering when we were going to get to this one. Well, it's here. So sit back and enjoy The Case of the Iron Box.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend at Master Detective Sherlock Holmes. Well, this is it, New Year's Eve. And I wish you could be here with us this evening so we could toast each other with a glass of Petri California port. As you know, port wine has long been a favorite wine for celebrating a happy occasion. That's because port is a wine rich in tradition. And you couldn't ask for a more delicious port than Petri port. Petri port is a deep, glowing red color, beautiful to look at and wonderful to taste, with a hearty, full flavor that's right from the heart of the grape. And when you serve Petri port to your friends tonight or any time, Remember, you can serve it proudly because the name Petri is the proudest name in the history of American wine. And now I'm sure Dr. Watson's waiting for us, so let's drop in and see him. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Mr. Bartell. Draw up your usual chair.
Thank you.
That's it. Well, did you enjoy the Christmas holidays?
Well, I've had a whale of a time, thank you, but I don't think I can face a turkey or a mince pie for at least another year. How about you, Doctor?
Oh, I had a very pleasant week, too, my boy. Parties, visitors, and a flattering number of Christmas messages to be answered.
Oh, say, you got a new pipe. Is that a Christmas present?
Yes, new pipe, new tobacco pouch, and a pound of my favorite tobacco. All of them sent to me from London by an old client and a friend of mine, Sir Ian Dunbar.
An old client, huh? Well, do you mean he was one of your patients, or was he someone that you and the great Sherlock Holmes helped?
The latter, Mr. Bartell. As a matter of fact, it was receiving this gift that reminded me of the story I've decided to tell you tonight. A story in which Sir Ian Dunbar played a prominent part.
And how did it begin?
The day before New Year's Eve in 1899. Sherlock Holmes and I sat in opposite corners of a first-class railway carriage as we sped towards Edinburgh in the Flying Scotsman.
What took you and Sherlock Holmes up there, Doctor?
It started off as a holiday visit, Mr. Bartell. My old friend Sir Walter Dunbar had asked Holmes and me to spend a few days with him at Dunbar Castle, about 20 miles outside Edinburgh. After we left King's Cross Station, Holmes, his sharp, eager face framed in his deerstalking cap, dipped into the bundle of fresh papers which he'd brought with him. We left Bedford far behind us before he thrust the last one of them under the seat, leaned across, and offered me his cigar.
Care for a cigar, Watson?
No, thanks, awful. I'll stick to my pipe.
Flying Scotsman's living up to its name. We're going splendidly. Our present rate is 53.5 miles an hour.
Oh, I hadn't noticed the quarter-mile post.
Nor have I, but the telegraph posts on this line are 60 yards apart. With the aid of a watch, the calculation is a simple one. Watson, my dear fellow, we have several hours ahead of us. Now, tell me more about Sir Walter Dunbar. I have a feeling that he is in some kind of trouble, but you haven't wanted to talk about it.
Well, it's not exactly trouble, Holmes, but there's a strange problem that confronts the Dunbars. A problem that'll be settled at midnight tomorrow.
Oh, indeed. Night of New Year's Eve, eh?
Yes, exactly, but to really appreciate the story, I have to begin by telling you of the death of old Sir Thomas Dunbar.
The father of the present baronet, I suppose.
Yes, he was severely wounded at Waterloo, though he managed to last out long enough to get back to Dunbar Castle. The story goes that as he lay there on his deathbed, he told his wife of his plans for their unborn
son. Dinner grave, lass. I'll fetch the baronetcy home from Waterloo. What if I fetch the mortal wound as well? Oh, hush, lass. I'm not afraid to die. All that niggles me is that I shall ne'er see the child you bear. The Sir Wattle Scott no coming yet. Jenny, he visit the deathbed of his old friend. Oh, who's there? Is that you, Sandy Murdoch?
Aye, Thomas. It's me.
Aye. I'm leaving an unborn son behind me when I die. Now, I don't trust women or children or banks for that matter. Put the best part of my wealth and gold in the big iron box you'll find under the bed. The money's there. Aye, and something else for a rainy day. You're to keep that box in trust for me, Sandy. You can turn it over to my boy on the New Year's Eve before his 21st birthday. And he'll be a man and wise enough to know how to use it. You understand, Sandy?
Aye, Thomas. But supposing your bairn's a girl.
A girl? I tell you, it'll be a boy. And we'll name him Walter after my good friend, Sir Walter Scott.
Very interesting story, Watson. And that child, of course, is the gentleman we are going to see now, Sir Walter Dunbar.
Exactly.
And the first baronet was a friend of Sir Walter Scott, while his son can boast of your acquaintance. Why, it's a family singularly rich in literary friendships.
That's not very funny, Holmes. To continue, I suppose you can guess what happened. Sir Thomas carefully drew up a document to specify the New Year's Eve before the baronet's 21st birthday. And the poor child was born on February 29th. It was a leap year.
Oh, So poor Sir Walter is still waiting for his iron box full of gold.
Yes, he'll be 84 next year, and yet legally, with only one birthday every 4 years in the eyes of the law, he'll at last be 21.
A most amusing situation, though I'm afraid Sir Walter finds it far from entertaining. The lawyers must have been extremely scrupulous in abiding by the letter of the document.
Yes, old Sandy Murdoch is dead now, of course. But he, too, is a great-grandson, William Murdoch, who still handles the Dunbar estate. He'll be at the castle tonight to formally hand over the iron box.
I'm delighted you accepted the holiday invitation of Sir Walter. My dear fellow, I've needed a rest, but I've always loathed too strict a one. This situation may pose a nice little problem for me.
Problem?
Yes, I'm reasonably certain that the aged Sir Walter Dunbar will not get his iron box full of gold on this New Year's Eve either. But we shall see, old fellow. We shall see.
Dr. Watson, I'm glad to see you and Mr. Holmes here at the castle.
Thank you, my boy. Holmes, this is Ian Dunbar, Sir Walter's grandson.
How do you do, Mr. Dunbar?
I'm very proud to meet you, Mr. Holmes. I've heard a lot about you. Grandfather will be down in a few moments. Let's go into the library, shall we?
Well, I imagine Sir Walter's quite excited about tonight's ceremony, isn't he?
Wouldn't you be, if you'd waited 63 years too long for an inheritance? Thank the Lord I had the foresight to be born on the prosaic date of August the 21st.
In the event of your grandfather's death, you would be the next baronet, I take it.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. You see, my father was killed 2 months ago at Mafeking.
Yes, I read about it in the papers, my boy. I'm very sorry.
Thank you, Doctor. The opening of the box isn't going to be the only ceremony at midnight. Dorothy and I are announcing our engagement.
Dorothy?
Dorothy Small. She and her father are staying here, too.
My congratulations.
Yes, indeed, Ian. Indeed, mine, too.
Thank you. It's been quite a battle with her father, though. He's a businessman and isn't impressed with titles when they aren't accompanied by a suitable income. But when we told him about the inheritance, he relented and gave his consent. Here's Dorothy now. Dorothy, darling, I want you to meet 2 friends of mine, Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
How do you do, Miss Small?
How are you, my dear? From what this young man's been telling us, I gather that congratulations are in order.
Thank you. I finally persuaded Father that Ian would make a worthy son-in-law. For a while, I was afraid we'd have to elope to Gretna Green, live in a cottage on bread and cheese and law, but brave the parental wrath, just as they do in the storybooks.
Oh, Sir Walter, there you are.
Watson, my dear boy. How are you? And this must be your friend Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do, Sir Walter?
Very well for a young nipper who'll be 21 at midnight. Gentlemen, may I introduce Mr. Herbert Small?
How do you do, sir? I believe that we have to congratulate you on the engagement of your daughter.
That was supposed to remain a secret until midnight. The Dunbar box was finally opened. Dinna be grouchy, Herbert. The children are in low, and I'm going to settle money on Ian. And it's New Year's Eve. Let's enter into the spirit of the occasion. Bring out the glasses, Ian. I've had some bottles of my special pride put out. It's the finest port in Scotland. The cream of Dunbar. My father laid the first bottle down the year before I was born. And a drink of the brew will surely warm the cockles of your heart.
Well, my mouth's watering already, Sir Walter.
When is this lawyer fellow, young Murdoch, getting here? Oh, any moment, Herbert. As soon as he arrives, we'll have dinner, and then we'll be ready for the evening ceremony.
He's bringing the famous iron box with him, Sir Walter?
If he doesn't, they won't get any dinner, Holmes. Ian, pass the glasses around, my boy. There you are, Murdoch.
Good evening, Sir Walter.
Oh, you've got the box with you, I see. Now the party's complete. Let me introduce you. Miss Small, her father, Mr. Small, my grandson, Ian, you know. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
I'm sorry I'm late, Sir Walter. My train was delayed.
Oh, that's all right, Murdoch. You're here, and you brought the box. That's all that matters. Ian, give our young lawyer a drink. Here, I'll help you pour it.
I must say that this is rather exciting, Holmes. The famous iron box with its inheritance of gold.
Yes, and from the size of the box, at a rough guess, I should estimate its cubic content in gold at around 5,000 pounds. Not a vast sum, perhaps, to a businessman like Mr. Small, but a windfall to an impecunious Scottish baronet.
Yes, I suppose it is.
A strong young man, Mr. Murdoch.
How do you mean strong, Holmes?
A box that size, full of golden sovereigns, would weigh a considerable amount. And yet the lawyer carried it single-handed.
Now that we're all assembled, I'm going to propose a toast. Though it's still some hours off yet, let's drink to the new year. It means a lot to some of us. To 1900.
1900. We should toast more than just 1900, Sir Walter. We should drink to the new century that's about to begin.
Good idea, Dorothy.
Oh, I'm afraid that wouldn't be quite appropriate, Miss Small. To be accurate, the 20th century won't begin until January the 1st, 1901, and not 1900.
Of course. That's it. Dorothy, I'm afraid your wedding can't take place for some time yet.
Father, what are you talking about?
I read an article in The Guardian the other day that said just the same thing as you, Dr. Watson. And what's more, it said something even more important. It said that 1900 is not a leap year.
Oh, rubbish. Leap year comes every 4 years. There was one in 1896. Then obviously 1900 is one.
I think Mr. Small may be right. What do you say, Mr. Holmes? Do you know?
Well, I hope no one would bring up this point, but it's the little problem I referred to on the train, my dear Watson.
Holmes, for heaven's sake, answer. Is 1900 a leap year or no?
I'm afraid it's not, Sir Walter.
No?
Because of a slight imbalance that would otherwise be produced in the calendar. Of the even century years, only those divisible by 400 are leap years. In other words, 1600 was a leap year, the year 2000 will be a leap year, but 1800 and 1900 are not leap years.
Then you have no birthday next year, Sir Walter, and I'm afraid I can't open the box tonight.
And the Dunbars won't get their inheritance.
And you, my dear, don't marry for a few more years. I won't allow you to marry a pauper.
Mr. Holmes, are you sure of your facts?
I'm very much afraid that I am, young man.
Oh, this is terrible. I can't stand any more.
No, don't take it too badly, Sir Walter. Here, drink this. That's it. After all, you only have to wait another 4 years.
Another 4 years? At my age, young man, at my age. Oh, no. I shall never live that long. Aye, what is it, Angus?
Dinner is prepared, Sir Walter. You can serve it as soon as you're ready, sir.
What a miserable meal, Holmes. Sir Walter's gone to his room, the young lovers are nearly in tears, and Small and the lawyer Murdoch seem to be positively gloating.
Yes, a most depressing atmosphere in which to welcome the new year. But let us, at least, make the best of it. I think I'll go and have a talk with Sir Walter. And you, my dear chap, why not try and cheer up the young folks? Some of your experiences in India may make them their minds off the trouble.
Yes, quite an idea. I'll join you in the library. Call me if you want me, Holmes. Ah, there you are, my dears.
Hello, Dr. Watson.
All alone in front of the fire, eh?
I'm afraid we're not in very good spirits, sir.
Oh, nevertheless, I'll sit down here and join you, if you don't mind. Misery loves company, you know.
You're very kind, Doctor. I was just trying to persuade Ian to elope with me. But he's being most ungallant. He won't even consider it.
How can I, darling? I've got under 200 pounds a year in my own right. How could we live on that? I was counting on the money the grandfather was going to give us to get me started.
Now, Miss Small, a little earlier you talked of Gretna Green and bread and cheese and love in a cottage. Yes, there's a lot to be said for it, you know.
Well, to be said for it, yes, Doctor. But have you ever tried it?
Not literally, my boy, but I may tell you that when Mary, my wife, and I were first married, I had very little money. In fact, my income was just about the sum that you mentioned. And we were very happy.
Ah, but you have a profession, Doctor. Look at me. I've been trained for nothing except to be Laird of Dunbar Castle. I can't support a wife on tradition.
But you're young, Ian. You can get some kind of position, I'm sure you can.
Yes, of course. As a matter of fact, I think that... Holmes, what is it? What's wrong?
There's devil's work afoot, Watson. Come with me, old fellow. And you, Mr. Dunbar.
Mr. Holmes, what's happened?
It's Sir Walter. I went to his room. It was in darkness, but in the moonlight I saw two figures struggling by the open casement. One of them was Sir Walter. As I entered, he disappeared from sight. His attacker had pushed him out of the window into the moat.
How dreadful.
The other man got away in the darkness. We must get lanterns and go out to the moat at once. Though I'm very much afraid, Mr. Dunbar, that your grandfather is beyond our help.
Dr. Watson will be back in just a second, so I'd just like to remind you that if you want to serve a wine over the holidays that you're sure the ladies will enjoy, serve Petri California Muscatel. Petri Muscatel is a golden wine with a wonderful flavor. The flavor of big, plump Muscat grapes. And you know what a flavor that is. I'm sure you'll find that Petri Muscatel is the favorite wine of all women, just as Petri Port is the favorite wine with men. And incidentally, if you're not sure which to get, Petri Muscatel or Petri Port, don't buy one, Buy two. Get them both, and you'll be sure to please everyone. Now, to get back to our story. Someone had pushed poor old Sir Walter out of his bedroom window and into the moat below. Isn't that right, Dr. Watson?
Yes, Mr. Bartell. Of course, we grabbed lanterns as fast as we could and rushed outside, but it was a hopeless task. The water was 8 or 10 feet deep, and it seemed obvious that the elderly Sir Walter wouldn't have a chance of saving himself. But we searched on, the flicker of bobbing lanterns and the scurrying figures in the frosty moonlight, forming a weird, fantastic...
Angus, bring a lantern over here. Aye, sir. Can you see anything, Holmes? Not a thing.
I don't see why your friend doesn't call the police, Dr. Watson. He's accomplishing nothing.
We thought there might be a chance of finding the old man alive, Mr. Small. He wants to avoid a scandal, if possible, for your sake, sir, as well as the Dunbars.
The scandal can't touch me or Dorothy over this. Her engagement was never announced. Thank heaven.
That's a great pity, sir. I should think some new blood in your family would be a great improvement.
You're being confoundedly impertinent, Doctor.
And you'll be confoundedly heartless, sir. Well, Holmes, have you given up hope?
I'm afraid we'll never find him without dragnets and grappling hooks. Have to call the police. What time is it? Sir Ian, you know the time?
What did you call me, Mr. Holmes?
Sir Ian.
By Jove, yes. It does seem a bit premature, Holmes, but of course you're right. If your poor grandfather's dead, Mr. Dunbar, you're the baronet now.
And the time, Sir Ian?
It's 11:45, Mr. Holmes.
A quarter of an hour to the new year. Sir Ian, doesn't that fact suggest something to you?
Yes, it does. So I'm the new baronet, am I? Very well, then. There'll be no more talk of the police for 15 minutes. I want all of you to come back to the castle with me. As the last chime of midnight rings out, I shall have a statement to make. A statement that I want you all to hear.
What's he brought us all back here for, Holmes? There's something very funny going on. I tell you, I don't like the look of it.
And I, Watson, like the look of it very much.
I wish you wouldn't be so dashed mysterious. What are you up to? You haven't taken a step yet towards finding the murderer.
Haven't I? And I wonder what causes the beads of perspiration on Mr. Small's brow.
Small? You mean that Small...
And I wonder what causes the singular look of apprehension on the face of Murdoch, the young lawyer. You remember, of course, on my remarking how easily he carried the large iron box.
Great Scott, yes. And it took a strong man to throw Sir Walter out of the window.
Watson, huh? The new year is approaching.
Ladies and gentlemen, in view of our recent tragedy, this is one New Year's Eve when none of us feels like song and jollity. But there still remains a ritual duty for me to perform. Mr. Murdoch, open the iron box, please.
But I can't do that. It was only to be opened for your grandfather.
No, Mr. Murdoch. The phrase was that it was to be opened on the New Year's Eve before the baronet's 21st birthday. I am now the baronet, and I shall be 21 next year on August 21st. Open the box, please, Mr. Murdoch.
Ian, darling, how frightfully clever of you.
Good lad, I hoped you'd think of it.
Sir Ian.
Murdoch, open that box.
Very well, Sir Ian. But I'm afraid you're in for something of a shock.
Great Scott, the box is empty.
Except for a sheet of notepaper in the bottom. What's the meaning of this, Murdoch?
Read that paper, Sir Ian, and you'll understand.
I owe you 4,000 sovereigns. And it's signed Alexander Murdoch, on behalf of Murdoch and Murdoch, lawyers. You'd better explain this.
It's the family skeleton, Sir Ian. That note is signed by my great-grandfather, the one that witnessed the original deed concerning the box. As soon as Sir Walter was born on that February the 29th, my great-grandfather realized the money wouldn't have to be produced for 84 years.
And so he stole it.
He borrowed it. He always intended to pay it back, but he was never able to. When he died, he told my father of his secret, and my father in turn told me. We've always planned to put back the money, Sir Ian, but we've never been able to.
This is daylight robbery. You should prosecute them, Ian. The firm's still in business. You can ruin them. You can sue them for every penny they have.
Mr. Small, you've already shown a marked aversion to my family. I suggest you allow me to handle their affairs.
Bravo, Ian.
How dare you, Dorothy? Go to your room.
No one's going to their room. No one's leaving here until the police arrive. I'm convinced that one of you murdered my grandfather tonight.
And if you ask me, it's obvious who that someone is.
Who, Dr. Watson?
You, Mr. Murdoch. You came here planning to kill poor old Sir Walter because you never intended to open that box. You thought that your secret would die with him.
That's a lie. I was going to tell him everything and then ask for time to pay the money. I didn't kill him.
Of course he didn't. There's your murderer. You yourself, Ian.
Father, what are you saying?
I'm saying that Ian's the murderer. He saw that the box wasn't going to be opened for another 4 years. He realized out the money couldn't marry Dorothy, so He killed his grandfather and then ordered the box open.
You're trying to cover yourself. You pushed Grandfather out of that window tonight. You thought that if he died, the box would never be opened. So Dorothy couldn't marry me.
You young whippersnapper.
Gentlemen.
Upon my soul, Holmes, you seem remarkably calm.
Do I, my dear Watson? I must say I'm absolutely fascinated by listening to three people accusing each other of murder, and each of them producing perfectly sound motives. It's a remarkable example of the dangers of reasoning from motive alone. We should profit by experience, Watson.
Mr. Holmes, how can you be so calm? There's a murderer in this
I
room.
suppose this game of charades is getting a little out of hand, Miss Small. Let's conclude it. You'd better come out now.
That tapestry, it's moving.
A happy new year to you all.
Grandfather.
Sir Walter, oh, am I seeing a ghost?
Oh, Sir Walter, you're all right.
But what kind of a game have you been playing? It's a bunny game that Holmes and I invented. You might call it forcing the issue. I was determined to have the box open before the next 4 years were out, whilst I was still alive to look inside it. But the trickery of your family, Murdoch, has made me a very unhappy man.
Sir Walter, I shall pay back the money in a few years. I swear I will.
It'll be too late to do me any good, but I'll take care that Ian gets it. I've half a mind to prosecute you.
Grandfather, the money isn't important now that you're all right.
You were counting on it just the same, my boy, so that you could marry Dorothy. I know that. She'll never marry a pauper. I won't allow it.
When I'm 21, you can't stop me, Father, and I am going to marry Ian.
Be quiet. Sir Walter, it's a very unsavory business. I think that you owe us an explanation of your behavior tonight. You tell him, Holmes. I fancy a wee drop of cream of Dunbar. Watching you all search for my body in the moat has made me thirsty.
The explanation is a very simple one, ladies and gentlemen. When you arrived here tonight, Mr. Murdoch, I knew from the way you handled the box that it could not contain the sum of gold it was supposed to.
And so you suspected fraud and devised a plan to force the opening of the box,
Yes,
huh?
and Sir Walter was an eager conspirator.
Of course I was. Ian is 21 next August. Supposing I had died after he came of age, and before my next birthday, 4 years hence, the box would never have been opened.
And so we invented the fake murder story. By the way, Ian, I must congratulate you for grasping the possibilities of the situation so speedily. If you hadn't demanded the opening of the box, the Murdoch secret might still be a secret.
Well, it was a clever plan, Holmes. It's too bad that it had to have such a miserable ending.
I'm not sure that we have finished with the matter. Mr. Murdoch.
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
You say that your family took £4,000 from that box?
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Curious. I would have sworn from its size that it would hold closer to 5,000. And in your account of the legend, Watson, you told me that Sir Thomas Dunbar stated on his deathbed that he had put something else in the box.
Right.
Something for a rainy day, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Did the Murdochs find that extra something?
No, Mr. Holmes. They found nothing but the gold.
Oh, that's very odd. I think I'll take a closer look at that box if you don't mind.
Since this seems to be a night of telling secrets, I think you might as well know, Father, that if you don't give your consent, I shall elope with him.
Oh, bravo, my dear, bravo.
No such thing.
I admire your resolution, young lady, but I hardly think it will be necessary.
What do you mean, Holmes?
Permit me to show you all the treasure of the Dunbars.
What have you found, Holmes?
Something for a rainy day that old Sir Thomas spoke of. You see, since the cubic contents of the box obviously differed from my calculations, I deduced the existence of a false bottom. I was correct. And in that space, I found this.
Oh, it's a manuscript.
Quite so, the manuscript of a book. Look at the title page and see the author's name.
History of the Dunbar Family. By Sir Walter Scott.
Scott.
I think, Sir Walter, that an original and unpublished manuscript by your distinguished namesake will prove worth several times the gold that is missing from that box.
You've saved the day for us, Holmes, my boy. God bless you. Oh, this has been as strange a new year as ever I knew. But it's turned out to be a bonny one, thanks to you, Holmes. Well, fill up your glasses. We're going to drink a toast to the new year.
By Joe, yes, Sir Walter. This is really a happy occasion.
Then let's complete it by singing the traditional song of the season, Auld Lang Syne. And in this case, when we sing, Should Old Acquaintance Be Forgot, I feel that in our hearts we should be thinking of Sir Walter Scott. Though he died over 60 years ago, he's made us all very happy here tonight.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to
Doctor, that turned out to be a very happy New Year for all concerned.
Yes, that's one New Year that I'll never forget.
Well, I sure hope you'll always remember this one, too.
Oh, just a second, my boy. That calls for a glass of port.
Fine.
Well, to a happy New Year, my boy, for you and for our many friends listening in.
And to you, Doctor.
Oh, thanks, boy.
That's good. Doctor, this has indeed been a pleasant association for me.
Oh, I'm glad to hear.
You're the best storyteller I've ever known, and the Petrie family makes the best wine I've ever tasted. I hope that, just as they've been making wine for generations in the past, the Petrie family will continue to make fine wine in the future.
And Mr. Bartell, I know that you'll always be here to tell us just how good that Petrie wine is.
Well, I hope so, Doctor. And I hope you'll always be right here beside me to tell another swell story about Mr.
I hope
Holmes.
so too, my boy.
Oh, and incidentally, Doctor, what new adventure are you planning to tell us next week?
Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you a weird story. It starts with a series of murders on Hampstead Heath and ends with a battle to the death in a burning waxworks. I call it the strange case of the murderer in wax.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Silver Blaze. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petrie Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studio. This is Harry Bartell saying goodnight for the Petrie family. For a solid hour of exciting mystery dramas, listen every Monday on most of these same stations at 8 o'clock to Michael Shayne, followed immediately by Sherlock Holmes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, between this episode and the night before Christmas, they definitely ended 1945 on a high note with a very pleasant ending. And they were doing some stuff with dates. It was kind of interesting. I don't know whether they quite had the law right on that 21st birthday thing. I know we have some, I guess they would call them barristers in the audience, but I don't know if they're experts quite in that area of law. But actually, an amazingly happy ending, given the way most of the detective shows end up. No one could be too dissatisfied with the outcome. All right, well, we do have a couple comments to get to. Timothy writes in regarding the Scandal in Bohemia, one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes stories, and Adam does a great job presenting these old-time radio shows to a new audience. And then we also have this one here. Thanks, Adam, for bringing us these great detective radio programs. Johnny Dollar and Sherlock Holmes are my favorites. Looking forward to following your podcast for many years to come. From Julia, and then just a simple, great show. Well, thank you so much for the kind comments. Well, it's our 195th daily episode, and so next week we celebrate 200 in grand style. On Saturday the 31st, with the Candy Tooth Caper episode of Suspense. Before we do get started, I want to let you know about our sponsors. The GoToMeeting conferencing service that's offered by our sponsors is designed for bottom-line folks who want to make the most of their time, don't want to compromise the security of their business, and want an affordable service. The bottom line on GoToMeeting, is it safe? Yes. It has the highest standard of security right down to the user interface. Is it affordable? Yes. You get unlimited meetings for $49 a month, and that includes free voice IP and phone conferencing. Will it save you time? Judge for yourself. Listeners to this program can get a 45-day free trial of GoToMeeting. For this special offer, visit gotomeeting.com/podcast. That's gotomeeting.com/podcast for your free trial. All right, so let's go ahead and take a listen to today's episode, The Pearl Carassa Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
This is Bob Case, Dollar, Piedmont Mutual. I've got to see you right away.
What's the rush? The girl was pulled out of the East River. It turned out to be a policyholder.
What am I, a private eye? Why don't you go to the police to find your killers?
Oh, we know the killer. He's being executed right after midnight. What we want to know about is the victim.
Edmund O'Brien in another transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office Piedmont Mutual Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my search for the beneficiary of policyholder Pearl Carassa. Expense account, item 1, $4.50, mileage, Hartford to Sing Sing Prison, last place of residence of the girl's convicted murderer, Marty Pruitt. He was sitting in his cell playing solitaire.
Hey, what time is it?
About 11, Marty.
An hour more. How much you say the policy was for?
$5,000.
5,000. That's funny. Just what I got paid for the job. Who'd she leave it to, the old lady?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew she would.
You know where I can find the beneficiary?
Beneficiary? You didn't know the beneficiary, did you?
Never had the pleasure.
If you'd known her, you wouldn't be looking for her.
Mrs. Carassa's virtues are none of my business, Marty. The company has $5,000, and I've got to help them get rid of it. What good are you doing yourself by not telling me where she is, if you know?
What time is it now?
A little after 11.
Boy, did that money look good. You know all the things you can do with $5,000? This girl back home. I was going to get married. Nah. I wasn't going to get married. I'd have put it in roulette like all them other times.
You never did say who hired you.
Nah, that's right. I never did.
Marty, I know you've been through this before, but you got to admit it's a good point. You're going to die, and the real murderer is getting off free. Does that make sense to you?
What's your business, mister?
Insurance.
Stick to it.
I think I will.
You know what I'd do if I was you? I'd take that $5,000 and put it in flowers.
Thanks, anyway.
Hey, Dollar, let me give you some last-minute advice. Leave it alone. It's the most unnatural mess you ever got yourself into in all your life.
Expense account, item 2, $3.56, mileage, Ossining, New York to police headquarters, New York City, where the next morning, Lieutenant Bernard Goldberg offered me photographs of the dead girl, a cigar, and what little information he had.
A body. We got the name off the wallet in her hip pocket.
What?
Slacks.
Oh.
The patrolman down at the docks picked up Marty Pruitt right at the scene. The trial was cut and dry.
That's Sergeant Riley.
But it's funny about these guys.
Yeah.
He's crazy loyalty to somebody who maybe wouldn't think twice about slitting his own. Yeah?
2 M's and remit.
Dollar. 2 M's and remit.
No.
No.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
You don't have any idea where I can start looking for the mother.
The most I can do for you is to give you the girl's last known address. But we've been over the ground 100 times. It's a rooming house. Nice but stupid old couple that don't know nothing.
This Seattle address on the policy.
1941. Then San Diego. Then to Cairo, maybe. Who can know? But we're still working on it.
Hey, Lieutenant, how do you spell parasitical?
Dollar. Parasitical.
Tell him to look it up.
Look it up, Sergeant. What am I, a Webster?
Expense account, item 3, $1.50 cab fare to a stack of dirty bricks in the Lower East Side.
Well, you have no business being up here in the first place, and especially with your husband in that condition. Looking for somebody, mister?
Yeah, the manager.
Third door to your right.
Thanks.
Now, don't tell me it's none of my business. Not when I bring soup down there every single day. Why, I never heard the like of you.
Oh, come in. Howard, why don't you sit down?
Thanks. You the manager?
I am the manager. Howard's the manager.
Well, my name is Johnny Dollar. I'm with the...
It's all right. We don't ask for references, do we, Howard?
Except under special circumstances.
I'm afraid you misunderstand. I'm not looking for an apartment. I'm an investigator with an insurance company, and I'd like to ask you a few questions.
We never had a fire in this building. That was next door.
They keep rubbish in the basement.
The company's warned them time and time again.
Never does any good.
I'd like some information about a girl who I understand was a tenant here, a Miss Pearl Carassa.
The police were already here, Mr. Dollar.
4 times.
Lieutenant Goldberg thanked us for our cooperation.
She was such a nice girl.
Quiet.
Home-like.
Generous.
Oh, yes, terribly.
How long was she with you?
How long was it, Howard?
Just 2 weeks.
Just 2 weeks. But we got to know her so well. She was such a lonely girl. She used to come down after dinner sometimes and talk about music and all the places she'd been.
Well, where'd she come from originally?
She never said, but she'd been everywhere.
In Florida?
Everywhere.
Did she have any visitors?
Oh, no.
No, and the first thing she told us was no visitors. If anybody asked for her, she wasn't home. Such a lonely girl. So pretty, too. You'd think she'd have boyfriends.
No, Mr. Dollar, no visitors.
Did she act as if she were frightened of something?
That's just what the police asked us, and we told them before, and we told them at the trial that we thought she was frightened.
Yes, we had her luggage here for a while, but the police took it.
I went through it, thanks.
Did you notice all the labels from all over everywhere? Wonder what they're going to do with all those lovely dresses and shoes.
Look, I know the police asked all these questions, but did you happen to notice if she got any mail?
Yes, we did. She didn't.
No, not a single letter, no.
She spend much time away from her apartment?
Very little, only.
Twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, but she always came back within an hour.
I don't suppose you have any idea where she went.
That's right, we don't.
What'd you say you were again?
Insurance investigation. Thanks for your time. Expense account, item 4, $50 in cab fares. It took me the rest of that day and half of the next visiting neighborhood postal substations. It looked like a beautiful way to waste time, but I was betting on the impossibility that her daily excursions had been for mail. This kind of foot padding taught me very little other than the fact that there are a good number of substations in any given half-hour area. The second afternoon, I dragged into a fruit store which advertised Postal Station 324 along with a special on honeydew melon. I walked up to the little cage. Anything for Carassa today?
Who?
Carassa, general delivery.
Just a minute. Grant?
Carassa. C-A-R-R-A-S-A. Carassa.
Just a minute. Yes, here we are. 3 cents postage due, Las Vegas, Nevada.
I looked at the envelope. Pearl Carassa, all right. It had been forwarded from Las Vegas 3 days before. I said something to myself about hard work, patience, and fool's luck, then headed for a phone. This is Dollar, Bob. On the Carassa thing, I'm still cold on the beneficiary, but we've got the girl traced as far as Las Vegas.
Well, that's a long haul for a $5,000 policy. Do you have a final address on her there?
A letter was forwarded to General Delivery here in New York that was originally addressed to the Rambo Club. I got a permit and had it opened. It's nothing but a dressmaker's bill. I guess the Las Vegas Postal Authority sent it on. That's all I got. You want me to follow it up?
Nothing else we can do. You hereby have authorization. Get going.
Expense account, item 6, $200 air travel and expenses to Las Vegas, Nevada. Specifically, the Rambo Club. It's always the same when I hit Las Vegas. I expect to find tuxedos and evening gowns playing the games, but I never do. A bootblack comes in off the street with the last quarter he made and plunks it down on 21. A grandmother with a California pension. A red-headed kid with Oscar's Super Service tattooed on his overalls. I always ask myself, where's all the big money? The answer is they're getting rid of it in the back room.
Jackpot on the nickel one. How do you like that? Oh, boy. Come on. Jackpot.
I told my relief I had to go powder my nose. What I really wanted was a drink.
Sly, real sly.
Is this taken?
No, sit down.
Thank you.
What do you have, mister?
A good bourbon, soda.
Oh, thanks for your confidence in me. I'll fix you up.
You worked here long?
Have I?
You like Nevada? What's your hometown?
Las Vegas, there I head in the summer.
Yeah, I guess you know a lot of people here, huh?
By sight, mostly. Very few by name. Everybody's a stranger.
Say, maybe you know a friend of mine. I went to school with her. What was her name again? Carassa. Pearl Carassa.
Save me my drink, Eddie. I gotta get back to work. Take it easy, mister.
Best bourbon in the house.
Thanks.
That's $1.50. This is a real clip joint.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Thanks.
Say, wait a second. Do you know where I can find Mrs. Henrietta Carassa? She's the mother of a girl that used to hang around here, Pearl. Well?
Yeah. I think I can help you. Harry, take over. Here's your $1.50. Come on.
$60.
Oh, I'm sure going to win it this time. I'll tell you, boy. Wait a minute. Grace, will you quit? Grace, will you? Will you quit, Grace? Grace, I'm telling you, quit. Listen to me, Grace. Will you quit? Grace, quit.
Shut up.
The stairway led to the mezzanine. I followed the bartender along the thickly carpeted hall to a door labeled Peter Barron. My benefactor knocked, a shadow loomed on the frosted glass, and just like that, there he was. A long red gash of a scar ran across the left side of his face, twisting it into a humorless smile. The barkeep was dismissed with a nod. We sat down.
Cigar?
Thanks, no.
What can I do for you?
I'm looking for a Mrs. Henrietta Carassa.
Why?
I got business with her.
What kind of business?
Insurance?
She don't need no insurance.
Where can I find her?
She don't need no insurance.
Well, thanks anyhow.
Sit down.
What for?
You see this mark across my face? You know how I got this? Asking foolish questions and not giving the right answers. Suppose you tell me what you want with Mrs. Henrietta Carassa.
I'll tell Mrs. Carassa you were interested.
Oh, look, this is no way to talk to me. Now, I got a lot of respect for your business ethics and all that, but you know how it is sometimes. Now, come on, Mr. Insurance. What do you want with Mrs. Carassa?
Are you a pretty good shot with that thing?
38's my specialty.
In that case, I've got a check.
What kind of a check?
A $5,000 kind of a check.
From whom?
A daughter.
Pearl?
Pearl. She left her mother $5,000.
How did you trace Pearl to Las Vegas? Never mind. You know what you look like to me? You look like a city official.
It's the pinstripe. Now, how do I find Mrs. Carassa?
It's very simple. Mike, this is Mr. What's your name, Insurance?
Dollar, Johnny.
Take Mr. Dollar to see Mrs. Henrietta Carassa. Treat him gentle. He's got some money for her.
The place looked and sounded the same on the way out, but something was different. Maybe it was the 4 6-footers standing at the door. As they fell in behind me, I thought maybe I'd asked one question too many. At the alley, I found out how right I was.
Phew. He was a tough one. Would have been easier. Just slipping my Mickey.
In just a moment, we will return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. But first, you hear them all on CBS, and some of the funniest parts of that all comes from the bird brain of a woman, Miss Gracie Allen of Burns & Allen. Top troopers on the American stage for years, top radio stars after that. George and Gracie are now playing a big part in CBS's great Wednesday night lineup. Bing Crosby, Groucho Marx, George and Gracie, and Dr. Christian. Join George Burns and Gracie Allen this Wednesday night on most of these same CBS stations. And now with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
There was a lot more to this case than a $5,000 insurance payoff. I'd sensed that from the beginning. A hired killer with a still unknown employer had searched out the girl in her New York hideaway and done a thorough, if not profitable, job. His warnings, which a man of my profession is bound to ignore, were beginning to materialize. As I woke up, I could hear voices.
Could have brought another wallet with him and left it at the hotel.
They took him in the alley and Joe and Harry...
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I think he's waking up. Hold his head.
Okay. Hey, we ought to get a doctor for him, maybe.
Nah, doctor.
He looks terrible.
Dollar. Dollar, can you hear me?
Dollar.
Huh?
Where you from?
What's this insurance stuff?
Who you really working for?
Is it the New York Police Department?
Where did you get these cards in your wallet?
Come on, Dollar.
Answer me, Dollar.
Give me some water.
Get him some water.
Hey, get some water, Joe.
Now, sit up. Come on, sit up. Here, I'll help you. There.
All right, now what's the idea?
That's what we'd like to know. Where do you know Pearl Carassa from?
Oh, that name.
Come on.
I'm looking for her mother.
What do you want with her mother?
She left an insurance policy. Girl, $5,000.
Hey, here's the water.
Thanks. Who are you?
Pete Barron.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the face is familiar.
You mustn't be bitter, Dollar.
Why?
Why questions?
Look, I'm just a working man. It's so simple. There's a company in Hartford, an insurance company. They sold a policy. The girl aboard it is dead. Policy is for $5,000. The money goes to her mother. All I want to know is, where is mother?
No kidding. Are you really an insurance man?
No kidding.
Well, why didn't you say so? Why didn't you come right out with it? Why do you go sneaking into bars asking funny questions?
Mister, do you know a Mrs. Henrietta Carassa?
Here in Las Vegas?
Here in Las Vegas.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll look it up for you.
Thanks. Now, lay me back down again. Expense account, item 7. $20, doctor bills. Nothing serious, but I couldn't go out in the street looking like that. I stayed in my hotel room for 2 days until the swelling went down. On the third morning, I had a visitor. It was the girl who gave me the brush-off in Rambo's bar. She had an overnight bag with her. There was a label. Bloomington, Indiana.
You're in trouble, you know that?
3 days ago, that information would have done me some good.
I mean, real trouble. You don't think Pete Barron let you out of there because he believed your story.
No more than you think you weren't followed here.
I know. She'd never come here. But Pearl, get a message to her, will you? Tell her never to show up here again.
She won't.
What do you mean she won't?
She's dead.
We got to her.
Do you know why?
I gotta get out of here.
Wait a minute. Why did Pete Barron hire Pruitt to kill her?
Let go. I gotta get out of here.
He came up here for a purpose.
Yeah, but I didn't know she was dead.
You're going to let him get away with it?
It's narcotics. The gambling place is up front. They fly it up from Mexico at night and get out by morning. Pearl found out about it, and that's why they did it.
Does Barron know Pearl told you all this?
I don't think so, but I'm not taking any chances. I got a bus ticket. It leaves from across the street. I only got a minute.
Good luck, honey. Left, I went to the window and watched her leave the hotel and cross the street. A nice girl, I thought. And I wondered how she got mixed up with Barron's crowd. The bus door opened, and she put one foot on the step. She crumpled to the sidewalk. The little overnight bag tumbled into the gutter. I got downstairs just ahead of the deputy sheriff, just after the bus had left. The people were still standing around. She was a nice kid.
You knew her?
Not for long.
Did you see this happen?
Yeah.
Step over here for a second, will you, please? May I have your name, please?
Yeah, sure. Here, here's my ID card.
Insurance investigation. Something about her?
No, a friend of hers. Pulled out of the East River. Pearl Carassa, shot to death.
Carassa?
Yeah, you didn't know?
Oh, we heard she left town. That was about all. She got mixed up with Pete Barron and her family disowned her. Well, did you see what happened to this girl?
She was just getting on the bus. It sounded like a rifle. She was working for Pete Barron, too.
Yeah, I thought I recognized her.
She just come up to see me. Had quite a story to tell. Barron's running narcotics up from Mexico by plane. Yeah, so I've heard. We've had our eye on him for months, but we aren't ready to pick him up yet. Why would she tell you that? She had to tell somebody. She had a message she wanted me to deliver. Pearl.
Well, this is beginning to tie up. But what's insurance got to do with it?
Carassa girl left a policy, $5,000 to another.
Her conscience must have bothered her. Comes from one of the finest families in this part of the country and starts downhill with a crowd like that. Now, her mother needs $5,000 like I need 2 haircuts. And, mister, if I were you, I'd take that check out to Carassa's and catch the next plane out of town.
You know something, Sheriff? That's just what I'm going to do. And that's just what I tried to do. Expense account item 8, 50 cents cab fare to the Carassa estate on Juniper Drive. They should have charged admission. There was an ivied stone wall running all around it, and a mile drive through a cactus rock garden to the mansion. I felt a little like a grocery boy delivering a check for a measly $5,000. I was met at the door by a butler in a business suit and was toured around an indoor swimming pool and potted palms to the library. Buried in a large leather chair, reading a 25-cent version of How to Be Your Own Gardener, was the man of the house. I was introduced and left alone with him.
Insurance?
Investigation. How long since you've heard from your daughter?
Oh, such a long time, such a long time. Is she in more trouble?
She's dead, Mr. Carassa.
Dead? Pearl dead? Can't be. What happened?
She was killed.
An accident?
No, it wasn't.
Not an accident.
Someone hired a killer.
Oh. It's my fault. I knew, and I did nothing.
Gregory, I've been looking all over for you. Have you watered the palms today?
No.
You didn't water the palms. Now, Gregory, the leaves will get all yellow and fall all over the floor, and it'll take simply minutes to clean up the mess around the pool. And I told you specifically that the music club had changed from Wednesday to Monday, and Monday is tonight.
This is a man from the insurance company.
How do you do? Now, Gregory, please do this one thing for me. You know how much I have to do.
Henrietta, it's Pearl.
I told you never to speak that name in my presence.
She's dead.
Dead?
She was murdered, Mrs. Carassa, in New York.
I'm not sorry. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. Not in the least. She's never done anything but bring shame to me and to her father. She brought these awful people to the house. To this house, mind you. Humiliating me in front of my friends. She even wanted to marry one of them.
Henrietta, please, not now, Henrietta.
I'm not adept at putting on false grief like you are, Gregory. She was no good. When she brought this man in, I told her right there and then, you're not my daughter. Go to the people that you fit in with. Well, this is the way it had to end. I'm going upstairs.
Mrs. Carassa, just one thing more. If you'll sign this paper, my job will be over. I have a check for you.
A check? What kind of a check?
She left you $5,000.
Me? She left me $5,000?
I remember. The policy she took out in high school. She never canceled it, even when you sent her away.
I don't want it. I don't want it.
Tell me, do you know who killed my daughter?
Well, the man that did the actual killing has already been executed in New York State. The man who hired him, it's only a suspicion. I'd rather not say.
Barron.
What about this check?
I don't think she wants the money. You can tell your company that.
Look, Mr. Carassa, I've come a long way. I'll leave it here. You can sign the form and mail it. Do you mind calling me a cab? Expense account item 9, 50 cents cab fare. Just as we pulled out of the driveway, somebody else pulled in. I don't know if he saw me, but I saw him. It was Pete Barron.
Are you sure, Dollar?
Positive. Sheriff, I woke up looking at that face.
What would Barron be doing at Carassa's place?
Could be a connection you didn't know about.
Yeah, this could be the tie-up we've been looking for. Somebody who supplied the dough. It's a big operation. I'm sure Barron didn't have enough dough to start it.
Well, what are we waiting for? I rode down with the sheriff. We bypassed the butler by taking him into custody. We heard voices coming from the library and stopped outside the door.
Business, I had to do it. She threatened to go to the police. She may have been your daughter, but she wasn't now.
Why did you tell her?
I didn't. She found out.
She knew about us?
Sure, she knew about you. She knew about everything. She would have turned you and your wife in a long time ago if you hadn't been her parents, but she was willing to turn me in, and I did what I had to. Wasn't my idea, you coming into this thing, but now that you're in it, you gotta learn that things like this happen.
Yes, and things like this happen, too.
Come on.
Drop it, Carassa.
And look who's here. Hello, Mrs. Carassa.
Let's go, Carassa.
No, wait. I want you to know about this woman. I want you to know what she is. All respectability and shine. Chamber music and non-objective paintings in high society. And where did the money come from, Henrietta? From narcotics. From the same people you hated so much.
Gregory, stop
I had a tile business before the war, but it wasn't good enough for her. She wanted displays, Italian marble, tapestries. She met Barron in back rooms and arranged to have me buy into his gambling casino. That was the first thing.
Don't you dare put the blame on me.
Whose idea was it to have the narcotics flown in? How many times did I beg you to stop? But you never listened to me. You couldn't keep from impressing the ladies and gentlemen. And when Pearl wanted to marry a decent young man, you insulted him right out of this house. This is the woman who sent her daughter away because her friends were not good enough.
I don't think you need me anymore, Sheriff. I'll just take that check and go home. Expense account, item 10, $200. Transportation back to Hartford. I don't know what you can do with the check. If it were up to me, well, I'd use it to clean up the respectable slums. But that's not my problem. Expense account total, $712.55. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd and David Ellis, with music composed and conducted by Leith Stevens. Edmund O'Brien can currently be seen starring in the Harry M. Popkin United Artists production, D.O.A. Featured in our cast were Hy Averback, Joseph Kearns, Bill Johnstone, Bill Conrad, Martha Wentworth, Sarah Selby, Howard McNair, and Virginia Gregg. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. Join us again next week at this same time when, from Hollywood, Edmund O'Brien returns in another transcribed adventure of...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
There is no more pitiful sound in the world than that of a hungry child. And it's a sound which can be easily heard in Europe and Israel, Korea, and the islands to the east. You can do much to help alleviate this condition through your continued purchases of care packages. Help banish the sound of hunger through your donations of care packages now.
Welcome back. What an incredible episode. The beginning was one of the most ear-catching Johnny Dollar show starts I'd ever heard. And then right through really solid storytelling, great action, and really a big surprise twist. The situation in the end was the opposite of what we would expect at the beginning of the story, in terms of who was responsible and who was the one that was crooked in the family. The way the police officer told it at first, it was a case of the case of the girl gone bad, and it really I think was a great surprise ending. Bill has a comment on regarding Johnny Dollar. He writes, your podcast is one of the best parts of my day. In the past, I've written to you to comment on Pat Novak and Let George Do It. I remain a big fan of both shows, but in recent weeks, I've become convinced that the best of the bunch is yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Frankly, I didn't care much for the Charles Russell shows, but after Edmund O'Brien inherited the action-pack expense account, my interest went into overdrive. O'Brien's characterization is deeper, tougher, and more emotionally fraught than Russell's. In the Dead First Helpers, O'Brien makes you feel Johnny's growing outrage over the mistreatment of the steelworkers. Pretty impressive stuff. Again, thanks to you, Adam, for this marvelous podcast. Good night, lover, Bill. Well, thanks so much, Bill. I think that you're right on. And he was probably one of about 3 CBS detectives who were on the air at this time and really had this kind of world weariness and frustration with the way the world was and the people and the crooks in the world. You think of Larry Thor as Danny Clover in Broadway is My Beat. Randy Stone in Night Beat. So you had really this was a type of detective that worked well. I think that in terms of actual toughness, believability, this characterization is really rich. And it's at times it actually gets somewhat intense the way he plays the character. So it's not surprising then that he was the only person who played Johnny Dollar, only actor other than Bob Bailey to have 10% list him as their favorite. And certainly that's a defensible choice. All right. By the way, Bill Johnstone back again as a New York City police lieutenant. I think it was a different one than last time. Sounded like he was Bill Johnstone really trying hard to affect a New York accent. That may have been the one part of the show that didn't work as well. All right. Well, we have a very nice comment here. Our family has listened to some of these shows on satellite radio for the past year, but now we find ourselves being able to listen to it at our own leisure. Surprising to have 3 children, 10, 7, and 4, rather to listen to Johnny Dollar than watch a DVD on long drives to visit family. Thanks and keep up the great programming. Well, thank you, and glad to have children listening to the program. All right, well, that'll wrap it up for today. We'll be back next week, next Friday, another episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And on Monday, we'll start it all over again with Box 13. Got any comments, send it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.